welcome everyone to Mark Out of 10, the discussion-based wrestling podcast where opinions mean everything and nothing at the same time. You'll see a slight difference this time where we're actually on camera. Hello. Hi. What a difference what a difference a week makes as the perceived plans for WrestleMania that the entire world thought got turned on its head. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more, along with us listening to our top 10 crowd reactions, whether it's the pop, the gasp, or it's just simply giving you goosebumps. Let's talk about it. First up, I'm the Mark's Mark Shields, and my co-host, our near-fall Nostradamus, the man who, when he predicts he creates a bypass on the road to WrestleMania, the housewife's favourite heel, Hoxie. How are we doing, Hoxie?
I'm very well. The near-fall Nostradamus, mate, I like that. Or Nostradamus, which is what I like to call myself sometimes.
I'm devastated when I think of that. It's annoyed me.
This is weird, being able to see myself and also see you. I'm looking the camera's there, hi, and then he's over there. So I don't know whether to speak to you guys or speak to Shields. I don't know. I'm just going to be flitting between. I'm good. What are you saying? How are you doing? What are you saying?
Yeah,
guys?
not bad. Well, we're going to see how this goes. If you're seeing us now for the first time, then you know the recording, everything's worked fine. If you don't see us, then something's went fucking horribly wrong. So
we've put it in the bin.
Yeah,
we've canned
it. We've just binned it. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, it's been decent, mate. It's been decent. We had good response from the last podcast, which is good. Mm-hmm. But it's getting better all the time. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, it's all good in the hood. Yeah. We had an email this week, Hoxie.
We did have an email.
Actually had another email.
How would they possibly send us an email, Shields? What would they do to do that?
The way you do that, guys, you can send us at wrestlemark10.com, or you could sub to our YouTube channel, comment on that, or tweet us at mark_out of10. That would be greatly appreciated. But yes, it's someone that's actually usually comments on our YouTube channel, but he felt it necessary to email us. So let me just load it up just now, and then we'll read it out to you. Okay, so it's from our good friend Pac Sam, or Sam, and he starts. Now then, boys. Just finished the entrance theme podcast. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I had too much to say to tweet or YouTube comment, so here goes. Firstly, Shields, the Dead Man Walking Taker theme was a phenomenal shout. I forgot how brilliant it was. Hoxie, when you were talking about Austin's music, Mankind winning the title is exactly where my mind goes to. Iconic. You both had some belters in there that I'd not even thought of. Definitely didn't give myself enough time with this list, but here's mine. Number 10, Kane, Slow Chemical. The full song is amazing. Number 9, DX. 8, Hulk Hogan. 7, Triple H The Game. 6, Bobby Roode Glorious. Didn't make my list last week. 5 was The Undertaker Rollin'. 4 was The Rock. 3, CM Punk's Cult of Personality. 2, Edge Metalingus. 1, Stone Cold, obviously.
Yeah.
And his honourable mention, Oh, You Didn't Know. Of course, it's the New Age Outlaws. That's a great shout, actually. The New Age Outlaws was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, he asks us a question. On the Rumble, do either of you think that Punk was maybe meant to win it, but called an audible when he knew he was injured? The whole thing's a mess now, to be honest. I guess we'll get some kind of clarification on what's going on at this press conference thing they're doing today, Thursday. I don't know if it's the Rumble, Mania season, or listening to you guys, or a combination of all three, but my love for wrestling has been well and truly rekindled. Cheers, Sam. It's very kind of you, Sam. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. That last little bit. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
That's what it's all about, right?
Changing
Going back to your question.
Minds, one podcast at a time.
That's it, mate. So, on the Rumble, do you think an audible was called, or do you think it was actually... Because depending on how you answer this, I've got a question for you. So, what do you think? Audible, yea or nay?
No, I think there's way too much on the line there. Because like the other question to that is, hold on, I'm thinking about it in my brain rather than having dead air and me thinking. So the outcome if Punk won would have been him challenging Rollins. And that would have been a bit meh. And obviously on the flip side of that...
It's an interesting question.
Go on. Follow up your question with a question.
It is an interesting question because... So, if... And I think Meltzer said this very similar this week as well. And, you know our opinions on Meltzer, but... Indeed. But, you know, if Cody was... Sorry, if Rock was always supposed to be against Reigns, which was apparently always supposed to be the plan, right? If Rock was always supposed to be against Reigns, and it was always scripted that Punk was up against Rollins, why would Cody have won the Rumble? You know, if those two main events were already predetermined, you know that's the question
there. Why is it that outcome? Yeah, I think it's way too much of a bigger deal. I think they could have explained their way out of an injury a lot easier, and obviously we'll talk about this quite soon. I know I've won the Rumble, but I've got a friend who wants to wrestle at WrestleMania instead. Like, that's bullshit. That's a massive. I'd rather Punk have won it and then come out on Raw and said, you know what, guys, I've won this, but I'm fucked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my opportunity to a wrestler or whatever.
No, they could have made the Elimination Chamber an actual thing then.
A number one contenders situation. They could have got themselves, and Triple H and Pritchard and all those guys who are in charge of sort of the booking right now. They're clever enough to realise that would have been... They had lots of time. Punk was injured early on. They had a good 15, 20 minutes to make that decision.
Yeah.
They would have come to that conclusion quite quickly. I know we talk about, like, The Rock was always going to be wrestling Reigns and stuff. Nothing is ever certain. Plans change, pal. You know what I mean? Nothing's ever certain.
Cards subject to change.
Right? Cards subject to change, exactly. So it's not necessarily like this is the way it was always going to be. The Rock probably thought, oh, I ain't having fucking Dusty's kid. Take my main event at Mania or something like that. It was like, I'm going to do it. Because there's rumours that he's in charge now, right? He's in charge of creative. There's big rumours and conjecture about this being the situation. So there's a lot more to it than that. I think the audible situation, I don't personally, it might come out and I'll hold my hands up, but I don't think that was an audible call. I think that was the plan. Something might have changed, or that was the plan all the way through. Whichever way you look at it, it's an absolute fucking monstrosity. How excited were we, like 2-3 weeks ago, about going into WrestleMania and all the repercussions of what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, the next pay-per-view, blah, 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 blah. It's took an injury and whatever they're doing with fucking Cody and The Rock to make my erection disappear. Basically, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I just don't. Oh, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy, but I don't think.
I suppose we'll learn. We'll learn more.
Yeah,
you don't think?
No. Cheers, guys. Anyway.
Interesting.
Cheers, guys.
Well, I hope that answers your question, Sam. I mean, it doesn't, but tough. It's all we can do, right?
It's just one fucking weird Northerner's opinion, right? But I really don't think that was that was the case. If it was, like I said, fair enough. But there's way more at stake. It's not a. Just let him drop it, and we'll sort it out after. They would have had time to think about it and work out what they were going to do, and I don't think that would have been the case. There's other options. There's better options. Much cleverer people to work that out than me.
Yeah.
And you.
Do they have the plans already? Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Do you think they already have the plans? So, like, obviously there has been numerous mishaps happen in Rumble, you know, in terms of, you know, people getting eliminated when they shouldn't be, double eliminations, etc., when it is, and they had to change it on the cuff. Do you think they already have those plans sort of pre-made in terms of,
like, a plan B?
Right, if Punk does get injured, yeah, a plan B, a plan C, plan D, because anything can happen in the Rumble, right? Because we're talking about 30 individuals that, well, indeed, entertainment. The pandas will sue us. But yeah, you just wonder. We'll never ever know unless they physically come out and say, right, this was the plan, which will probably never ever happen unless, like, I don't know, Triple H fears from his life from Punk, you know, if Punk confronts him. But yeah, all that we can say is it's definitely been a wild week, okay? A lot of stuff has happened.
It's been fucking mental.
And I think this particular... it's been fucking crazy, right? For the first time since 1997, the People's Champ, the Great One, the most electrifying man in all of entertainment, was viciously booed and, you know, he became a monster heel without even really doing anything. Didn't utter a word on SmackDown when Cody came out. I haven't seen the likes of it in a long, long time, because it was revealed that he is going to go one-on-one with the tribal chief Roman Reigns. Now, I say it's been revealed. I still think there's a twist, Hoxie. I still think there's something going to happen at this.
There's more to it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
They've made such a massive deal about this press conference. Now, obviously, the press conference is going to be a big thing, but they've made such a massive deal that The Rock's going to be there, Cody's going to be there. Apparently, I was reading just before we came on, Cody's being very cryptic just now. He released something, I don't know if it was on his Twitter or Instagram, saying he's made a decision, because he technically, and The Rock is sort of bad-mouthed Cody Rhodes' fans. Again, if you haven't seen it, check out all the dirt sheets and stuff. So I still think there's a twist in the tail somewhere. I
hope there is.
What we didn't.
I hope there is.
Yeah. Could we see Cody Rock night 1 and then the winner, whoever that may be, going into night 2 against Roman Reigns?
It would be good.
It's not something we thought of.
I'd be there for that.
But then that opens up who would Seth Rollins face? And with the rumours, again, I've heard on the sort of grapevine is triple threat, Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. And a triple threat. It doesn't fill me with, it doesn't make my belly go fizzy, but,
no.
I just don't know. Thoughts, Hoxie, on The Rock being booed for the first time, major first time since 1997? We're talking like Die Rocky Die levels of like Rocky sucks.
Well, you can't really blame them or blame the fans or blame people for this reaction, because I think everybody's we've spoke about it, the different sort of way that we would book it if we had the pencil or the pen or whatever, the way that we would go through and do what we needed to do. We want these matches. We want like Punk and Rollins or like the Rock and Reigns or Cody and Reigns, and all these different sort of machinations of this outcome. And then we end up with, because it just makes the Rumble pointless, doesn't it? How much does it shit all over the Royal Rumble, right? They're making this big deal that the number one contender going into WrestleMania is going to be the winner of the Royal Rumble. It's not always been that, but it's been like that for the majority of the time, and it's a big thing, it's a big deal. And then it's like, oh, Cody's won, brilliant. Nah, I know I've won, but I'm going to give it to my mate. It's like, oh, blur. And The Rock is, I think people have got respect now, and it's changed. Like, The Rock is still obviously a star. He's still The Rock. He's still one of the biggest stars in the history of wrestling. But he hasn't been there for a long time. Fans are smarter now in terms of understanding the news. They know he's in charge with, like, he's on the board with TKO and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, we don't want this. It's a bit like with Batista and like Triple H and Daniel Bryan or whatever. Like, they didn't want Batista. They wanted Daniel Bryan. And it's a very, we spoke about this, didn't we? It's a very similar sort of outcome to that situation. So we want this. We had a groundswell. We feel that we made this happen, and now it's not happening. So we don't like that. And it could have been anybody on the end of that. It could have been whoever. Doesn't matter. Interface The Rock with somebody else. I think you're still going to get exactly the same situation. I've just realised when I'm talking with my hand, it makes my hand look absolutely massive, but it's really close to the camera, like a big fucking Andre the Giant hand. Like, oh dear, my hand isn't that big, guys. It's just really, really close to the camera. But yeah, it's
just really far away.
It's really far away. I've got a tiny head and a massive hand, but like I said, it's a bit like when Fergie took over at Man United. Like, whoever's going to have that fucking job after Fergie, when Fergie left United, like, whoever's going to have that job after him, it's going to be shit, and people are not going to like it.
Yeah, David Moyes is going to hide into nothing. Yeah,
exactly. So it's a little bit like with this situation.
I think what makes it even worse is that it was such public knowledge that The Rock has got a board position.
Yeah,
and obviously, like, everybody is assuming it's a power play from him. I mean, you said it yourself, right? It's a case of, you said it earlier, is him saying about Dusty's kid, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they'd kept that under wraps, it still wouldn't have been a positive play, but I don't think it would have been as toxic. I think a lot of people, there's stuff that I've seen on Twitter, and Twitter's not the best place to go for like sane thoughts, but they're talking about it's the whole creative control that Hulk Hogan had in WCW. It's that similar sort of vibe, putting himself over in places they probably shouldn't have been.
That doesn't work for me.
I mean,
brother.
That's a very extreme example, but yeah, exactly. It doesn't work for me, brother.
He's there, like I said. There's rumors. Like he's in charge. There's rumors he's in charge. So why not? I want to put myself in. It's WrestleMania 40 or whatever, XL. It's a big WrestleMania.
XL.
It's probably the main opportunity, the biggest opportunity in probably the most high profile match of the card. The Rock's a clever business guy anyway. He's a clever cookie. He's going to put himself into that position. It's very simple, isn't it? Really, regardless of what we want,
business,
it's
right?
That's exactly. It's not the wrestling friendus; it's the wrestling business, right? So, like, he's going in there.
I mean, I'm just going to say,
I
I'm getting what I want, but I still don't want the Cody to win.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Shields wins.
Yeah,
but no, as I've said before, my opinions on Cody are very apparent, but I just want the story to finish, and we'll wait and see. Like I say, there is something, and obviously we're recording this prior to the press conference. Potentially there'll be something.
When is the press conference?
Potentially there'll be something. It's today. It's
today.
Tonight. Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah. And so what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on the sort of dirt sheets and stuff as it goes. Yeah, so let's have a look. Cody Rhodes shares cryptic message about WWE WrestleMania decision before press conference. Despite removing himself from facing Reigns, Rhodes neglected to answer what his Mania plans were Monday on Raw when confronted by WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins. Now it appears Cody's finally made up his mind, taking to his Instagram story around noontime, so I'm assuming that was UK time. Rhodes cryptically posted that he had made a decision, though he wouldn't elaborate. Like I say, there's a twist in the tale somewhere that WWE have been very, very clever in terms of they've still got time to change direction if they need to. Mm-hmm. We're not talking it's coming out like Elimination Chamber where we're talking a matter of weeks. We've still got time to see how this unfolds and unravels. It's going to be interesting. What was it The Rock said? Give me a second. What was it he said? Can I see it? I love Cody. I love his passionate fans. Then there's the other passionate fans of Cody, and they're called the Cody Crybabies. These are grown-ass men. Fucking love it.
Cody Crybabies. Ah, dear.
We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens. It's going to be interesting, Hoxie. It's going to be interesting.
And this is, I know, not necessarily as enthused as I was a couple of weeks ago with what's going on, but it's still keeping us guessing, and it's still keeping us talking about it, and it's making us think and making us use the old grey matter, which is you really can't say that from like recent memory with things. So it's still cool, but it's not as cool and as exciting as it could be.
Well, it's like we say, we haven't had it in such a long time, have we? In terms of we still don't know what's going to happen, and we've talked about this for a few weeks now in terms of the fallout from the Rumble, what's going to happen at Mania. Yeah. And not one of us guessed that Cody was going to win it. He was then going to turn down the opportunity to go against
and give it to the Rock.
Reigns and give it to The Rock. We didn't predict that.
No,
that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. But yeah, hopefully we'll find out more as we get through this podcast, and we will sort of reveal it live, or as live as it can be when we release this on Sunday. There is more news that we're going to talk about in wrestling, but we're going to do that in between the lists, as opposed to, we don't have a Royal Fumble. This could be a future Royal Fumble. Who knows, Hoxie?
I've got a feeling it might be.
So we're going to go on. I don't know. Positivity, Hoxie. Positivity.
Yeah, I'm always a positive guy. Always a positive guy. Rocky sucks.
Be a positive Polly, not a negative Nancy.
Not a negative Nancy.
Okay, yeah, so top 10 list time. We are going to talk about crowd reactions. As I said in the intro, it's about the pop, it's about the gasp of the audience, or it's about the goosebumps that it gives you as the person that's watching. It could be, as I say, an individual pop. It could be a sustained period of time pop, or just something that makes you feel something. So I think a lot of this is going to be very, very unique to us and why it makes us feel this way.
It's basically the crowd.
Hoxie, it's over to you.
It's basically the crowd going mental, isn't it? Really. So it could be for a minute, or it could be for 10 minutes, or whatever. It's just 100%. That relentless reaction from a crowd, just fucking all into anything. What's going on? I'm so excited for this, dude.
100%.
Really, really excited for this.
It's going to be good.
Once again, it's a little bit like the wrestling themes from last week. It's how it makes us feel. It's not like an opinion thing, like, I think Randy Orton's a twat and I don't like him. Like, well, I think he's really good. It's like, this makes me feel something. And there's no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone says to you, they can't tell you how you feel. And that's the best thing. And that's why wrestling 100%. Is amazing, because it makes you feel all tingly and warm inside, or really angry, or whatever. So I'm buzzing my little tits off of this. So I'm going first.
I love it.
Number 10 for me. Number 10. So my number 10 is what I think is the whole reason that we are here today, really, probably, is WrestleMania 3. It is Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. It is the body slam heard around the world, basically. The match was dog shit. The feud was incredible, transcended anything that's ever happened in wrestling before. People might argue with the old Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler thing, like whatever. This was just the nth degree of anything that's ever happened in wrestling. This was a worldwide phenomenon. This is what started that rock and wrestling journey. And this is the whole reason why we're here. That WrestleMania 3 was the biggest card. It was the biggest risk that Vince McMahon ever took. And if it didn't pay off, they would be in the shit, and they probably wouldn't have been around for much longer after that. That feud, Bobby Heenan getting involved, like laying out or doing all the promos for Andre. You've got the biggest guy that's ever been in a wrestling ring against the biggest character, the biggest personality that's ever been in the wrestling ring. It was, 15-minute match? Whatever it was. Most of it was bear hugs and holds and nerve holds and fucking Andre, bless him, using the ropes to walk around. But as soon as Hogan picked him up and slammed him and hit him with that leg drop, there was 750,000 people in the arena, according to WWE, whatever it was, 80,000 people in the arena at WrestleMania 3. Just going, was it this? I'm going to do a Hogan now. It wasn't the Superdome. It was the Silverdome, wasn't it? It was the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan.
Slam heard around the world.
The slam heard around the world, basically. Just 80,000 people in unison and millions of people around the world in unison, just jumping up in absolute, just maniacal levels of craziness. And that was it. Off to the races. Wrestling was never the same. It was always better than it ever was before. And that's the reason. I genuinely think, as much as Hogan gets shit on or whatever, like I said, we talk about the way wrestling makes us feel, blah, blah, blah. That is the reason we're sat here today talking about wrestling, is because of what happened that day. There's lots of stuff from then that are sliding doors moments, but I think from an importance moment in the history of wrestling, Hogan slamming Andre the Giant is probably top of the mountain for me. It's a really, really big moment, and the reaction and
really
everything,
important.
Just an insane reaction. All the flashbulbs going off, the fucking camera was shaking, like people were fucking fainting and passing out, and just mad shit. Hogan slams Andre, number 10. Had to make it on my list. Not for necessarily how it makes me feel, but how the whole of wrestling makes me feel, and this was the pivotal moment for that.
I mean, we'll definitely talk about Hogan slamming Andre later.
I would imagine
by later, I mean right now, because my number 10 is Hogan slamming Andre.
What the fuck?
Basically, absolutely everything you've just said there. I think they built it so well because Andre was such a obviously he was the guy, right? He was the
boss.
He was the attraction, and
he was the boss.
He was the boss. Yeah, exactly. Yep. He was, and the body slam symbolized, and it was the passing of the torch, because Andre didn't let anybody body slam him, you know, and Andre knew that Hogan was the next thing in wrestling. He was going to be the sort of main attraction, right?
Yep.
And I think it's the build up to the pop for me. You know, it's a case of, you know, Hogan struggling to try and lift him, etc., and then, you know, he does the Hulk up, and then it's the body slam, and like you say, it's the sheer cheer, and that cheer sort of symbolizes where wrestling went. So yeah, it had to be on my list, and yeah, it's just mental. It's on number 10, same as. So there you go.
I'm just going to reiterate this for those who haven't listened to the podcast before. Firstly, why not? But on top of that, we do not discuss these lists at all.
No.
Before we do. We don't even mention to each. We'll discuss about how many we've got on or how much of a struggle it was, but we never, hand on heart, scouts on it. I know you can see us all right now. Look into my eyes, not around the eyes, look into the eyes. We never ever discuss these lists before we come online. No. It fascinates me sometimes how close we get with certain things. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy. I know I joke about this, but our menstrual cycles will be sinking very soon. They really will. Oh, dear.
The thing is, though, there are certain points in wrestling, if you're a true wrestling fan, right? Because I guarantee, I knew that Hogan slamming Andre was going to be on your list. I just knew, right?
Yeah.
And I could probably guess maybe 2 or 3 others that are potentially going to be on your list for whatever reason. Okay?
Yeah.
I can't predict what position, but I could make a pretty good guess. And obviously the guys that you know wrestling-wise, they could probably do the same, right? And I think if you're a proper fan of wrestling, there will be key moments in time, okay, that will that just sort of bind, and this sounds really cliche, but it sort of binds every sort of proper wrestling fan. You know, if you love wrestling, if you like what it's about, there'll be certain moments and pinpoints in history where it just makes everybody feel the same sort of way. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's quite cool that we got the same number 10.
It's mad. It's mad.
It is mad. Okay,
but it's
moving on swiftly.
Like just reiterating what you're saying. People who understand wrestling and they understand the importance of certain things, they might not like Andre and Hogan. They might be 15 years old or whatever, but if they get it, they'll see that this is important. There might be somebody who is older than this, who was a wrestling fan in the 60s or the 70s or whatever, who'll be like, oh, back in my day, Buster Douglas was the best wrestler I've ever seen. Like, he will, or they will understand that Hogan slamming Andre was a big deal. I think it's a pivotal moment in history, wrestling history especially. I think popular
what I'm going to do is
culture
give
as
an
well.
example here.
Go on.
Right, I'm going to give an example, right? And it's 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. We've got the Young Bucks and we've got MGF, right? The Young Bucks are, if we're talking about the Hogan slamming Andre, right? They're talking about the pop, right? Whereas MGF would be about what that pop then represents for the rest of the wrestling business. That's the difference between like wrestlers, if we're talking about that. That's the 2 different ends of the scale we're talking about here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've got people that like just the pop, but we've got people that also understand what the pop means for the rest of the sort of industry and the journey that is taken from there. And I think you put it best yourself. This is what started. This was the catalyst. Okay. This was probably, I would say, the first mainstream pop. You know, there's been pops obviously in wrestling. There were pops in WWF beforehand, but this is the one. You know, if you watch any WWE programming now, whenever they're doing the precursor to the actual shows, what's the first thing?
Then Now Forever thing or whatever. Yeah.
Then
exactly.
Now Forever.
Yeah,
what's the first thing they show you?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the difference. So So you'll have the fan, like your sort of pop monkeys, the fans of the Young Bucks who want to see something cool. And do you want to know something? That's absolutely fine, right? There's a place for them in wrestling. Jim Cornette will probably disagree, but there is a place, right? It's you know what I mean? But you're not going to be able to please everybody with that. Like I like to think of myself as like the old school wrestling fan that likes the storylines, likes the character development. Love a pop, you do. You love a really cool spot where you can go, holy shit, right? What the fuck? Because one of the key things about suspending like your disbelief or whatever it is, it's about they're doing shit that I can't do. That's what you want, right? These larger than life characters, these larger than life superstars, but at the same time, you want to be able to relate to them at the same time. So
you'll be able to invest.
Yeah, sorry, went on. Went on a bit of tangent there, but cool.
Boos and yays are better than oohs and ahs.
Boos and yays, absolutely. So Hogan, Slam, and Andre is both mine and Hoxie's number 10. So on to my number 9.
Yep.
This particular match, Monday Night Raw, was a cage match, and it was the pop, the crowd reaction when Daniel Bryan actually left the Wyatt family. And this catapulted Daniel Bryan to that upper echelon in WWE. And there's a moment where Daniel Bryan is actually concussed and he's sitting on top of the cage and he's doing the yes chant, and everybody in that audience is doing the yes chant as well. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't seen anything like that to that degree since like the Attitude Era. And for me, as soon as I saw that, that was one of those ones that you record it on like Sky Plus, you rewind it back and watch it over and over again. And there's certain moments, again, probably on this list, that you'll go, holy fuck, like that's incredible. It's just watching everybody in that crowd just going, yes, yes. And it was the build up to it as well. It's all about the build for me, yeah. And you can see that something's going to happen. It's when he gives himself to Bray Wyatt in order to give him the Sister Abigail, then pushes out of it, and then he does like the yes kicks, and then takes off the Wyatt family robe, and it's his burgundy short end.
Yeah.
It's like the burgundy trunks and the burgundy boots, and it's just like, holy shit, this is sort of the rebirth of Daniel Bryan. He's back. Yeah, that's what you want. And like I say, it's just that sheer intense pop from the crowd was just fucking hell. And it does. It's like goosebumps again, just thinking about. Yeah, and that's what it's about, right? And yeah, I think everybody knew Daniel Bryan was is a phenomenal professional wrestler, right? He is. He's
one of the greatest of all time.
Very few people can touch him.
Yep.
Absolutely. If you're talking in-ring talent, absolutely. But this made him from a professional wrestler to a superstar. And we don't like the word superstar, but this is what we're talking about in WWE. That's what really moved him, was that being able to connect with the crowd to that stage where every man, woman, and child in there were doing the yes chant. And for me, that was phenomenal.
Most people at home are probably fucking doing it as well. They will be sat on their sofas doing exactly the same thing. Yeah.
We talk about transcending sports.
Yep.
Right? And that transcended sport, because if you went to like American football games or baseball games, the yes chants were going, So yeah, for me, it had to be part of this list because it's a modern day classic, essentially.
I think there's a term that like I would use for something like that, and it's basically becoming a made guy. Like you're a made guy in that situation. People will say like, "Oh, you're not made until you win a title." Like, no. You don't necessarily need to be a WWE champion or a wrestling champion or whatever to be a made guy. Say, for example, somebody like Roddy Piper or whatever. Yeah. So it's that situation where, and that moment really was like a turning point in the outcome that we got at WrestleMania with him winning the titles. Right. That was basically like the moment where it was probably knowing the way, I say knowing the way Vince, but knowing the way Vince works in that sort of mindset and that mind frame within the business. That was probably like a little bit of a litmus test for that. And I think that's where it really, that people were there for it. They wanted it to happen, but that's where it started to that groundswell of that people's movement to make this happen for Daniel Bryan. Like obviously we've discussed this before. It wasn't. I don't think it was ever the plan to have that, but everybody made that happen, and that was that jump point. That was the catalyst for it. Definitely.
It was the catalyst for that, but it was also the turning point for WWE to, everybody was talking about they listened to the WWE universe, but this was probably the first time that they pivoted in order to, placate's the wrong word, but it's just to satisfy the audience a little bit, because everything was all about Vince McMahon's wet dream, right? That's all. Yeah. That's all it was.
All the big boys having a fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, and the real test of time is even AEW fans who we know are the hardcore fans in terms of the indie darling people, they still do the yes chant now. And that, for me, like you say, that's testament to how over...
Independent shows that I work on, smaller shows, they still do it now. They'll do a yes and a no. It's mad. It's mental. It's mental. Dude, it's not on my list. I can totally understand why. I'm there for it. I'm here for it. I don't disagree. It's a big moment. That was 2000
huge.
2014, man. It's like nearly 10 years.
Well, it's
over 10 years ago. That makes crazy, me right? A, feel old as shit, but B, it doesn't seem that long ago for me. If someone says 10 years ago, I think like, I don't think it's 2024 now. If someone says to me 10 years ago, I think it's like 2005 or something. You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. But yeah, 2014, man. It's nuts. Nuts.
Holy shit.
So yeah.
Okay, Hoxie, over to you, your number 9.
Dude, so my number 9, I remember where I was. I can remember who I was watching this with. I can remember my reaction. Do you know we talk about reactions of crowds and stuff? I matched that reaction. It was almost like a Tourette's response. It was like a guttural response to this happening. So this is WrestleMania 33, okay? Which was, there was a 4-way tag match. So you had Gallows and Anderson, Cesaro and Sheamus, Enzo and Cass, and then you have the hosts of WrestleMania coming out. Who's gonna be the fourth team? And then that fucking Hardy Boys music hits, and I literally jumped off my sofa. Were you
doing that?
I started to do that. I jumped off and I just stood there. Miss Kelly was watching it with me, and I jumped up. I was just like, I stood there just like that, like looking at the telly, like, oh. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "It's the fucking Hardy Boys." It got all over me. I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it. As soon as that boom, like that music hit, I lost my shit, and then I started doing the dance. That, like I said, the way it made me feel, that guttural response that just came out of me. It wasn't like, "Oh yeah," like Hardy Boys. It was just like, "Oh, what the fuck do I do?" Like my body was just in like overdrive, and just the way it made me feel, and it was so good. Such a great secret. Nobody expected it at all. Great surprise. And yeah, it had to get it on my list. There's a couple that I got rid of to get this one on there. So I'm really happy that it's on there because of the way it made me feel. Hardy Boys, WrestleMania 33.
Basically, before we got on the call together, this was my honourable mention, but I took it off.
Okay.
But I 100% agree with you, though. It was up until the very last minute. It was on my sort of wider list. 2 things I want to say about it is I think the New Day played that part so fucking well because everybody thought
it was going to be them.
They were so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, all right, okay, fair enough. Because like you say, no one knew that the Hardys were going to be there, right? It was such a well-kept secret, which doesn't happen very often. The only disappointing thing I thought was Matt being broken Matt.
OG Matt. Yeah.
Not OG Matt. That's the only little thing that I could say as a negative towards it, because you had to be like a proper hardcore fan to understand why I was going delightful, but it was such a great moment. And if you go into any YouTube channel or any YouTube video about the pops or crowd reactions, that's always going to be on that list. It's going
to be on there, isn't it?
Because it's just phenomenal.
And it happened at Mania. Like, there's always big crowds at Mania. Like oh, dude, love it.
The re-debut of the Hardy Boys, love it.
I need to watch these, but I'm going to go and watch my list back. That's what I'm going to do after this. When we finish recording, I'm going to go and chill in bed, and I'm going to watch every single one of these that's on my list and get really excited about them again. So yeah,
brilliant.
Yep,
love it.
Cool.
Okay, Hoxie, over to you. Your number 8.
My number 8 is it's something that I've spoke about on the show before, on the podcast before, in the matches show that we did. This is In Your House, Canadian Stampede from 1997.
Yep.
We've watched this on stream before. I wouldn't say I introduced you to this, if you know what I mean, but I think I reintroduced you to the brilliance of this match, if that makes sense. If anybody hasn't seen this or don't know what I'm talking about, it was a In Your House pay-per-view, so one of the lesser pay-per-views from 1997, which is the best year in wrestling, in my opinion. It's the main event match. So it's basically Team Bret Hart. I need to just bear with. I just need to Google this. Because it was In Your House 16. I just need to make sure I've got all the people right, because I know them, but I don't 100% know them. So Hart Foundation, Bret Hart, Pillman, British Bulldog, Jim Neidhart, and Owen Hart. And they defeated Shamrock, Goldust, LOD, for fuck's sake, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. All of this match all of this pay-per-view was basically built around this match. This match, like the whole main event went like 40 minutes. The match was like 20 odd or whatever, but the whole sort of like main event time went about 40 minutes. And they were only like 2-hour pay-per-views, weren't they, the In Your House ones? And I've said about this before, the crowds in Canada were so into this match that the fact that they were jumping around and the noise that they were making was actually interfering with the camera feed. Yeah. The only other thing that I've ever seen that on is at Live Aid. The camera starts to it was vibrating that much because of how much noise and effort and music and sounds going on. There was 12,000 people at the Canadian Stampede. That's how much of a big deal Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation were. And at the time, when Stone Cold was the heel, he was the face in America, but he was the heel in Canada, that whole thing. Yeah. But just that crowd reaction for that whole fucking 40 minutes, and then all the Hart family got in, and Stu and fucking, like, everyone, you mean, yeah, big bastard, yeah. Like, they got in at the end, just the crowd were with it all the fucking way through. It's one of my favorite matches ever. It's one of the best crowd reactions you'll ever see. If you haven't watched this match, whoever's listening to this, if you can, pause this podcast right now, go and watch that match or whatever, the last 10 minutes or whatever, and then come back and listen to the rest of the podcast, because it is fucking incredible. It's insane. And for a crowd reaction to get all over you and just get you invested in something, even as a neutral, top tier. Insane. Number 8, Canadian Stampede. Yep.
So that's one of those that I knew was going to be on your list at some point. We talk about it all the time. And
yes.
It's to see the people that were in that match and to see their sort of roles flipped. It's insane. It just shows the sort of the love for the Hart Foundation, right? The Hart family in Canada is just different gravy, essentially.
12,000 people in Canada were making the same amount of noise than 50,000 people at a WrestleMania. Yeah. It's
absolutely.
That's not an exaggeration, guys. Genuinely, that's not an exaggeration. That fucking Saddle Dome in Alberta was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Go and check it out.
Not on my list, Hoxie, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean the same amount as it did to you. It was never going to be on my list, but I totally understand what your reasoning. Justification is everything. Everybody that's listening.
We're not going to fall out about it. It's all about the justification, guys. It's all about the justification. A t-shirt soon at
100%.
Ah, dear.
It's coming soon. Okay, so my number 8.
Yep.
Now, I had to make a decision because this was there were two main things that I remember from this pay-per-view. Okay, SummerSlam 1992, the old London Wembley. Right. There was the one that was on my list to start with was the LOD pop when Paul Ellering and the LOD came out on the Harleys.
Yeah.
Pop was insane. Like on the motorbikes was just so phenomenal. But the one that pipped it to the post was British Bulldog finally beating Bret Hart.
Obviously.
It had to be just... We're talking about goosebump moments, you know, and for the UK crowd to have Davey Boy Smith go over Bret Hart. And there were two main pops to this, right? It was the eventual pin, you know, the 1, 2, 3 where Davey Boy wins it. But it was the hug at the end as well with Bret and Bulldog. And I think that was a second pop there. And... You know, I rewatched it today because I was swithering up until the last minute in terms of which two to do. And, you know, I was watching the LOD and the LOD coming out was cool. But this one here was just, it caused goosebumps. It was like, fucking hell, I would have loved to be in that crowd. It was just incredible. Wembley, if it had a roof, the roof would be blown off it. It was just, it was just different.
It was such a great finish as well. That reversal of the float, like of the sunset flip was just brilliant. Really good finish. Yeah,
so good. You know, and again, if we're talking about crowd reactions, that Wembley crowd has got to be. It goes up there with pretty much any crowd. Yeah, you know, it's. You know, UK fans, we are fucking awesome. I mean, in terms of reactions and crowds and stuff.
It was the biggest attendance ever until recently, wasn't it? And the WWE hid the fact because they always wanted. Well, at the time, it was the Silverdome, wasn't it? It was that WrestleMania 3 crowd. They wanted it to be the biggest ever. So apparently there was like 94,000 people at Wembley, apparently, or 92,000 or something. The rumours are, but then there's like obviously the discussion with fucking AEW, and maybe there was 80,000 there, and there was only 70,000 at the Silverdome. There's loads and loads of different stories are going on, but regardless of the number, apparently it was more. It was more than any WrestleMania or any WWE show they've ever done, but they hid it because they didn't want it to be in England.
You hear 70,000.
It's the most WWE thing, isn't it? It's crazy. It's crazy. We gotta have those goddamn Brits get shit record. God damn it,
those limeys. So it had to be on my list. Like I say, SummerSlam 1992 was always going to be on my list somewhere, and I just had to decide, and it was the Bulldog beating Bret Hart. And again, it's a culmination of a storyline, right? It's not just a one-off match. It was like weeks and weeks, and you know, it was about. It just went on, and it was just sort of the perfect. Chef's kiss finish.
I think it's the only time that the IC title has headlined a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I believe so.
Which is that shows how much of a big deal it was as well. So it was the other one that got took off my list, mate.
Yeah,
so it's not on there. I can't disagree with anything that you're saying, but there's just other stuff on here for me personally that pipped it, but it was the other one that got took off the list.
Fair dues. Okay. Okay, moving on to my number 7 then. This, I like something that you don't expect to happen on one of the shows. So on like a Raw or a SmackDown. It's not a pay-per-view, but it's something that you don't expect to happen on there. And for me, this person is one of the most underrated talents ever. And I wish him all the very best in TNA. It's Dolph Ziggler cashing in the Money in the Bank against Alberto Del Rio.
Del Rio after Mania. Yeah.
Yep. It was
dude.
so good. Again, it's about the journey of Dolph, right? He is one of the best to do it. One of the best sellers. We talked about Dolph in different places. He's just never had a sort of position on our lists, but for me, if you go and watch that, I think April 8th, it was 2013 this happened on Monday Night Raw. He cashed in against Alberto Del Rio, and the pop, again, it's about multiple pops, it's sustained pops throughout. It was when you hear the music go.
Yeah.
It's when you hear that he's actually going to cash it in.
Yeah.
When he hits the zigzag, and then it's
Yep.
the 1, 2, 3. It was just so good. And again, if you haven't seen it, you need to go and watch that. The crowd were so in for it. Again, it was
They were ready, right?
for Dolph.
They were ready for it.
They were ready for him to get
Yeah.
it. And it was just so perfectly done. And it's an absolute travesty that he didn't have more title runs or didn't have a longer title run, because I think Dolph is one of the very best to do it. He's so talented. He has got the look. He's got the charisma that would put him over as maybe not. He's not going to be in the upper echelons in terms of memory of heavyweight champions, but he could certainly hold his own, Hawks. If you look at some of the people that have held the title over him, it's just, he's so good. And yeah, that pop from when he actually won it, brilliant.
Because there was as well, wasn't there? So it was usually a match.
It was like a mini match,
didn't they?
Yeah,
Beating everybody. Dude, I remember where I was watching that. I can't believe that didn't even make it onto my bigger list. That's crazy.
Wow.
Didn't even think about it.
Fuck. Okay.
Not through like.
Interesting. No. I know you like Dolph as well.
Yeah, like, dude, like it's just not in my mind at the time when I was making the list, but I can see why. Dude, I can see why. I can remember watching it. I watched it with my brother. My brother was a big Dolph Ziggler fan. He's not a huge wrestling fan, my brother, not a massive wrestling fan, but he used to watch it with me, whatever, if he was chilling, and he loved Dolph Ziggler, and I can remember watching it, and the pair of us were like, shit, it's going to happen, like, what the fuck, like, going mad. It was cool, yeah.
I remember, I was watching on my sofa, and then the music hit, and you go like this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then Dolph Ziggler's cashing in, you're like that.
Yeah.
And then he hits the zigzag, you're like that. And then it's the pop. It's just so good. And that's what it's about. It's putting it to the edge of your seat, right? And that's what did it for me. He's so good. And I genuinely hope he has a massive reign in TNA, because I think TNA is probably the best place for him to go just now.
In showcase and some New Japan stuff where he can go and have his own matches and show actually how we know he's good. We know he's really good. But I think in a TNA or a New Japan, he'll be able to have the matches that he can and he wants, which is brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
Yes, my number 7 is Dolph Ziggler winning the heavyweight title. It was at the time, it wasn't WWE. It was the world heavyweight title against Alberto Del Rio, who is now performing in gymnasiums near you. Over to you, Hoxie. You're number 7.
So, my number 7 is something that is very, very recent. Very, very recent. The last couple of months. And that is Survivor Series 2023. The return of Randy Orton. No, not Randy Orton. I'm joking. The return of CM Punk. I didn't watch it live. I haven't watched it on like a big screen. Yeah, I haven't watched it on like the network or anything. But we had a conversation, didn't we? The morning of, or the morning after, or whatever. I was hanging out of my fucking arse. I went to a party the night before, and then we went to a pub, and we pretty much had a lock-in in the pub, and I had a couple of hours sleep, and I was trying to peel my face off the pillow, and you were like, have you seen Survivor Series? I was like, no. You're like, you might want to have a look at Survivor Series. And I was like, okay, I'll have a little look on Twitter, or X or whatever. And the first thing that came up was CM Punk trending, and I was like, oh my God, it's happened. And the footage, the video, it made me, I don't know whether it's because I was hanging. I think it makes me more emotional anyway, when I'm just like, what have I done? Dude, I was a fucking mess. I was rough, but I was like, oh my God, like, just emotional, absolutely emotional. A crowd reaction and stuff always gets all over me anyway. We all know, guys, everyone who's listened to this regularly, John, you know, I'm a huge CM Punk fan. I love what he brings to the table and what he brings to the business. I'm really sad that we haven't had him, or we won't have him as well for an X amount of time. The fact that he is back in the WWE after all the shit that's happened was just an amazing thing. And the way that they played that with bringing the fucking trademark, like the copyright logo up at the end, and you've had the one like reaction and all this, that, and the other. Dude, just that crowd in Chicago as well, nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally covered in goosebumps right now just thinking about it. I've watched that video. I think I've got it saved on my phone. I like screen recorded it. Like I've probably watched it 50 times, 100 times. I don't even know. Just the reaction of that crowd and him coming back and just looking like a badass and standing there clobbering time with his just looking badass. I love it.
So
I love it. It yeah. It has to make it on my list. It's not further up for other reasons, which we'll find out shortly. But CM Punk returns to WWE after 10 years. Yes, please.
I want to talk about it later.
Every day and twice on Sunday, please. Thank you.
Talk about it later, Hoxie. Talk about it later.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. Again, that's one that I knew that was going to be on your list. I think I know one more that's potentially going to be on your list.
Yep.
So yeah. Anyway, moving on to your number 6, Mr. Hawks.
My number 6 is another one of those sustained kind of moments, really. One of my favorite matches of all time. We've talked about this on the podcast before as well. It is WrestleMania 18, the true main event, really, of WrestleMania 18. And that is The Rock versus Hogan. I can't really say much more than what I said in the favorite matches episode.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's hard to put into words the actual react. We've talked about the match before and all that sort of stuff, but it just fills my soul with happiness and joy and just like excitement. It's like being a little kid and a big kid and an adult when I watch it back and just and I just relive this match. And people say like, oh, if you fucking watch the match without any crowd noise, it's absolutely dog shit. To them, I say, you're a nonce. Fuck off, basically. But on top of that, we don't watch matches with the sound turned off, do we? No. We watch matches as a fan, as part of that crowd, an extended part of that crowd. And they are just from the moment they get into the venue, not the start of the match, not the promo package, not the fucking music hitting. From the moment they get into that venue, they are just vibrating and they're ready to fucking take this on board. And I'm all there for it. I'm all in for Rock versus Hogan. It makes every part of my being happy and excited and joyous all at the same time. And it gives me vibrations. So for that reason, number 6. Rock versus Hogan, WrestleMania 18. Very simple, short and sweet. Yeah. Not really much more I can add to that. It just, does things to me. Simple as that.
Talk about that one later too.
We have to, right? I knew that was going to be on yours. I knew if you are any form of a wrestling fan, you're going to get this. You're going to have that. Yeah.
100%. The positioning of mine might surprise you, but there's a reason for it. Okay. But that's by the way.
That's your reason. What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
All about the justification, guys.
Yep. Opinions mean everything and nothing at the same time. Okay, my number 6 is the return of arguably the best heel at that particular time after a really serious injury. It's the return of Triple H at Madison Square Gardens on Monday Night Raw.
2002?
2002, I believe so, yeah. That I watched it. I watched it live. I was watching it. And I've never... Obviously, there were matches thereafter that we did, but at that time, I didn't hear anything like it. Just the build-up to him returning and some of the promo packages they were running in terms of, the rebuilding them, etc. Just stuff like that was just so good. And then the music hit and the crowd were just there for the entire thing.
MSG as well, dude. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
the Mecca, right? And I think I go on about, it's not just like one pop, it's different pops as well. Yeah. And there was a period where, it was a point where Kurt Angle interrupted him. If you remember that, Kurt Angle interrupted him and Triple H, basically, he went for the throat of Kurt Angle. He like took his top off, and then fucking it was just mental. It was the crowd were just fucking there. I popped for it at home. I was like,
Yeah.
this is what we're looking for. I mean, usually you want Triple H to be the heel because he plays the heel so well, right? And he did play the heel so well for such a long time. But a face Triple H when he's that intense is just, it works so well as well. And yeah, it's just,
there's no way he could have come back as a heel. He had to.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, he had to come back as that. But he still rode that fucking wave, didn't he? He was right on the cusp of that. Yeah.
And I think cool. he is. I mean, people shit on him a lot, but he is. He truly does love wrestling, right? He is. He's the consummate pro, really. When you think of it, obviously he's attached to the clique, etc. That's by the by. But in terms of the wrestling business, he does.
That was clever from him. So you can shit on him all you want for that. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, 100%. But you could see how much it meant to him when he was in the ring and he heard the crowd. It was just constant cheers for him, and it was the emotion in his face was there, and I think that just shows what sort of person he is and what the sort of the wrestling business meant to him. But yeah, that return was just something very, very special for a very special talent, and he is he is, for me, probably one of the greatest heels ever. There was a period where he was the best in wrestling. At a point where WWE needed a real badass heel, and he was that badass heel.
Yeah,
and he just is that damn good, right? To quote him, he's just that damn good. And a lot of time for Triple H, I think what he's done, as he stepped away from the ring's phenomenal. But that particular pop for me was just something different. Different.
It was on my sort of wider list that I whittled down. For all the same reasons. It's a big deal. It was a big deal. And I know you're a big Triple H guy as well, so yeah, that's cool. Can't disagree with that, mate. Can't argue with that at all.
It's a good start to the list. Everybody that's listening. Hope you're enjoying it so far. We're halfway through, and now what we usually do is we take a bit of time to either do a royal fumble where something goes wrong, or we talk about more things that have happened in the news. Now, we've been really conscious that for the last few weeks it's been very WWE heavy. And that's because the sort of season we're in, right? It is WrestleMania season. Road to WrestleMania is well and truly there. It's the silly season. But there are a few things that's happened in the other promotions in wrestling just now, and we're going to touch upon them just ever so slightly before we continue the list, Hoxie. And where do you want to go first? Do you want to go AEW or TNA? We'll
go AEW because I think there's a bit more meat on the bone with the TNA stuff. So we'll do AEW first. Yeah.
Okay. So AEW, this is potentially could be a spoiler if you haven't seen the latest television episodes of AEW. Sting and Darby Allin have just became the tag team champions, and after they won the tag team championships, they were beaten down by the Young Bucks. We have our very strong opinions by the Bucks, so we know that's going to happen. It's always been on the cards that the Bucks are going to take on Sting and Darby. Thoughts, Hoxie?
He obviously he's got the retirement match coming up, hasn't he? To have a career like Sting has had, he's had that sort of second and third coming, really, hasn't he? In terms of like he came back to WWE and then he had that injury and then he's come back again with AEW. He's done some cool stuff in AEW. Like his AEW run isn't bad. Like we can't poo-poo it or anything.
Nope.
But if he goes out, if he goes out of wrestling after his whole career by putting over the fucking Bucks, I don't know what I'll do. I will feel sick to the pit of my stomach. I know that. I just don't think. The thought of that gives me the ick, like really bad. It's a fascinating prospect, and I think that's basically the only way they're going to get out of it. He's not going to win. Everyone loses on their way out. Everyone loses their last match. He's not going to win and be like, oh, I want to give this title to Dave Smith, and you can be Darby Allin's fucking tag team partner. No, it's not going to happen. It's going to be Darby and Sting are getting a pat on the back and a thank you from everybody for what they've done, how they've worked with each other. Sting has brought Darby Allin up a level. I rate Darby Allin anyway, but he has improved his perception and his presentation. You can't deny that.
Yeah.
But the books have pulled their card, and they're going to have his last match, and they're going to fucking beat him for the titles in his last match, and that's just wrong.
Do you think that's what it is? Do you think they've pulled the card, like the VP
They're in
card?
charge. They're in charge of the tag division. That's their bag. Like Kenny's with the women, the books are the tags, and that's it. It is that simple. Like people, it can't be that easy. Like it is that simple. The books are. That's why they didn't want to do business with FTR and stuff, because they were in charge of it. They weren't told to do the business. They didn't have to if they didn't want to, because they were the ones booking it. It's crazy,
What does this do to Sting's legacy? Right, you've just said it there. It's like the career that he's had, the second and third coming of Sting. I mean, technically, you could say like the fourth coming after his TNA run as well, right? And so it's like WCW, TNA, and WWE, and obviously now AEW. I don't think when we first talked about his end of his career match, not one of us thought it was going to be a tag team match against the Young Bucks and him losing the tag champs.
Nope.
So what does this do for his legacy, though?
I think the 850,000 people who watch Dynamite and AEW or whatever will be like, "Oh my god!" Most of them will be wanking themselves silly because the Bucks have won, and the other 300,000 or whatever that turn off every time they come on the telly will be pissed off. But I don't think it's a legacy breaker, because you can't let the last fucking match of his career affect that whole thing. It'll be a bit of a pooey way to end, a bit of a shitty situation to end. But if it was a WWE situation and there was loads of people watching it and it was the biggest thing ever and it was at a WrestleMania or whatever, then it's going to be a bigger deal. But the fact it's going to be on is it the Revolution pay-per-view? I can never remember. It's a Revolution pay-per-view. I don't think it's going to be that much of a big deal. It's going to be shit for us because we watch it, or we're sort of fans of it and fans of his, and it'll be shit because we don't like the Young Bucks, but I don't think it'll be a legacy breaker. It'll be shit. It'll be really shit, but I don't think it'll be one of those where it's like, oh, well, it's fucking bullshit. It's what did he ever do in wrestling? I don't think it's going to be that situation. It's going to be crap, but we'll forget about it.
It's very sad, right? It's really, really sad.
Big time sad. For me, like for other people, it might be a good thing, like whatever. God, it's just going to be shit, though, isn't it? Like we're talking about it like it's actually happening and it's been booked on, and that's what we know is going to happen. But I can't see them not doing it. So,
well, I mean, let's be honest. The sort of booking past of AEW has not been spectacular. It's been very cookie cutter, right? So I mean, how dare I?
The best
but you know what I mean?
In the history of mankind.
It's like,
what are you on about?
There's been no massive swerves, really. I mean, you know, the devil situation. Everybody knew in their granny it was Adam Cole that was going to be the devil, right? There was the occasional one where I think it was going to be Perry, but you know, it didn't come to fruition.
Who, Perry Saturn?
What's his face? Little fucker. Jack,
Jungle
that's
Boy.
the one, yeah. Cunt.
The cunt.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, damn, I've left the button. Yeah, it's disappointing. To be fair, it's better than Ric Flair being involved. Only just.
I would rather have Sting and Flair have their fucking last match than the fucking Young Bucks win the titles off them.
Oh, dear.
And kind of, he's probably not joking there either.
Dude. Yeah. So, Sting, Darby Allin, congratulations winning the tag team championships.
Yeah. Fair play. It's some decent gold that Darby's had. He hasn't had much gold for a while. I know he had the TBS thing for a bit, didn't he? But or TNT or TNT, isn't it? The TBS is the women's one. He had the TNT title for a little bit, but fair play to him. Yep.
The concern I've got for Darby though is when Sting retires, what's next for Darby Allin? Because
he's a tippy top guy for me. We've had this discussion before, and I know you're not necessarily too keen on him being in that position. For me, he is the tippy top guy. He is the Jeff Hardy. He's that one that doesn't fit the mold, but needs to be in that position. He's the Rey Mysterio.
Do you mean AEW champ, like top champ?
In that mix, yeah. Wow. Genuinely. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
For character, for quote unquote gimmick, for reaction and fan input, and he's a decent worker. Like, he's a really decent worker. I know you don't like his finish and all that sort of
I
stuff.
don't like finish, no.
But he's a really decent worker, and the fans are behind him. I saw that. I can see this now. The fans are behind him and invested in this guy. I think if there's anybody who could be in that echelon, I'm just going to put this to you. So obviously MJF's out for a while.
Yeah.
I don't want Hangman Page in there. I don't want Moxley in there. No. I don't want Kenny there. Daniel Bryan's fucked. Okay.
Yep.
I want Shane. I want Swerve Strickland as the champ. I want Swerve as a world champion. He is tippy top, high level, elite tier guy, in my opinion.
He's got 100%.
He's got all of it. Capital IT. Just think about some of the matches and some of the fun stuff and the feuds that a Darby Allin and a Swerve could have. Not necessarily like Darby needs to beat him, but if you've got that little baby face fighting from underneath against a bigger Swerve who's being just like a bastard, like he's got so much swagger and heel charisma, and Darby will get behind Darby as an actual face, as a real threat to that. Swerve is the cool heel now. If he's up against the Darby Allin will be the face, and Swerve will be the de facto heel. He will actually be a heel. I think it'd be really fun. I'd pay money to see that. I mean, I wouldn't pay money. I'd go on Daily Motion and see that pay-per-view, but you know what I mean? I'd go out my way to watch it. I think it would be brilliant. I really like Darby Allin. I really rate him. I really do. When I first saw him, I saw him at Evolve before, and on a few shows like on the network and bits and bobs that have been sent from people over the years. And then I didn't really see him properly until he came in AEW, and I was a bit like, I don't necessarily like. I didn't get it, but I was like, let's have a look at this. And first couple of weeks of Dynamite and seeing them, I was just like, yeah, I get it. I really do get it. And that's not saying like if you don't that it's a bad thing. Like whatever. It's art, personal preference. But I genuinely think it. Look, if you agree with me, tweet at Mark_out of10. Send us an email, message in the YouTube page or the Spotify page. Comment, drop, subscribe, tweet, whatever you guys want to do.
Also on Instagram now, by the way.
On Instagram. We are on Instagram, Mark out of 10, hashtag Moo10. Let us know. What do you guys think? But for me, personally, I think he's potential, tippy top guy potential.
Now, I do like Darby, right? I don't like his finish, like I said. Now, you said a word there, okay, on that sort of description you had, and it's the word threat. Mm-hmm. I don't see him as a threat to a Swerve. Yeah, and I mean, I know you can always go back to the sort of the Jeff. He's got similar vein to Jeff Hardy, or Jeff isn't small. That's the difference. Whereas, and then you go to Rey Mysterio, but Rey Mysterio is a totally different. Like
Rey Mysterio is very unique. People
exactly.
use the Rey Mysterio argument.
Yeah, it's wrong.
I didn't use the Rey Mysterio argument earlier on to terms with size.
I'm preempting comments.
Presentation. It's different presentation. Mysterio's unique. Darby Allin's unique. Jeff Hardy's unique. Whatever.
I get the underdog thing, right? I do get the underdog thing, and it stood the test of time in wrestling, right? It's all about the bad guy and the underdog, good guy. That's absolutely fine. But there has to be a threat, in my opinion, to that guy where you could actually believe, do I know something? If this little guy gets, or if the good guy, the underdog, gets a little bit of a break, there's a legitimate chance he could whip the ass of that guy. I don't believe that from Darby Allin against like a Swerve Strickland. I don't believe that against, MJF coming back. Even to some extent, like Daniel Bryan, I wouldn't believe that of it. I just don't know. There's just something missing for me in terms of him going from absolutely upper mid-card talent, right? We're talking like IC title, like type. He is super talented. He's super over. He's got the unique look, like you said. But for me, I just think I think the size thing for me it's too much of an obstacle. And I hope I'm wrong. I do hope I'm wrong. I hope he gets the big belt and he proves me wrong. But I don't know. It's just something for me. Just it's not quite clicking in terms of the guy. If you're talking about the face of a company,
I'm not saying
I
the
just
guy.
don't see it's him.
I'm saying a guy. There's a difference. A Cena is the guy. A Rock is the guy. A Stone Cold is the guy. Okay? A Kurt Angle was a guy. A Jeff Hardy was a guy. An Edge was a guy. There's a difference. There's a big difference.
But I don't think you could put Darby Allin in the same bracket as
a
guys, as a Kurt Angle, as an Edge.
I'm just talking about.
No, I know what you mean. But
reference.
But if we take that as a point of reference,
So
you're absolutely right.
I'm going to ask you a question now. Okay. So Swerve Strickland, whatever, Hangman Page, whoever it is, Moxley is the AW World Champion, World Heavyweight Champion. Okay. Would you rather see a match between John Moxley and Darby Allin, or John Moxley and Orange Cassidy?
Okay, fair enough. Fair dues.
Okay. Next, TNA.
Oh, fair
dear.
dues.
Yeah.
We don't like,
You know
we
what
don't
I mean?
like pockets on this. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah,
Orange
I do get it.
You can get in there.
I do think that Darby has a place. Okay, but I don't. For me, I don't think the big belt will suit him. That's all I'm saying. Like, I think we're talking upper mid card for me. Like a Mr. Perfect. Again, I'm not saying that Darby Allin is the same as Mr. Perfect. That's not what I'm saying at all. But,
Where he fits
I
in
think
the card.
that Darby Allin could, I definitely think that he could be a guy that doesn't need the title.
I can see your point, but I think in an audience now, I think in this time, it's a little bit different now. Especially with an AEW audience, I think they see the belt as like a big thing, and they see all these belts because they've got a lot of belts, and TK puts them over as being an important. It's, you know what I mean. There's more belts than fucking real belts actually in the backstage locker room. You know what I mean. So, excuse me. I think it's a different audience. They respect that. They want the belt collectible shit and all that.
Yeah. Well, like Hoxie says, let us know what you think. Mark_out of10 on Twitter, at Mark out of 10 on Instagram now, because I made an Instagram. I'm really bad at Instagram, so, just deal with it. And, WrestleMark10 at gmail.com, YouTube channel, all that jazz. There is one more AEW bit that we've got to talk about as well, is Tony Khan had a major announcement, Hoxie. Major announcement. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah, I mean, they
what was this, 1,423rd?
Okay, 1,004.
So I believe that AEW are going to Boston, apparently. That's it. But Boston, spelled BO $TON, Boston. So people are thinking that is the signing of Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks.
I don't agree with that. I think we're going to see Shane McMahon debut.
Or could it be the ultimate swerve? Could it be Vinnie Mac making his return to wrestling?
Sniffing all that
no chance.
NDA money. Some good shit. No, $3 million. All joking aside, it's going to be Mercedes. It's going to be Mercedes Moné. I would also probably potentially throw another name into the mix of a Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, the money situation, the play on words. Potentially, there could be a bit of a swerve, bro, with the whole fucking Mercedes Moné thing. We think it's going to be her, but actually it's going to be Making It Rain in Boston with the Rainmaker. So I don't know.
Well, it's the money, and it's also Boss as well. She was the boss.
Yeah, the whole thing. But dude, it's that on
Okada,
the nose.
Yeah. But again, this is AEW.
I don't want him to go to AEW. I want him to go to WWE. We've had this conversation.
So we've had the conversation about Okada. We've touched upon like Mercedes going to AEW as well. I had her down as like overrated, and I still maintain that. I don't think that she is going to move the needle as much as she thinks it is, and the AEW fans think it is, because she's good in the ring. Don't get me wrong, she's very decent talent, but I think they've got better on the roster than Mercedes Moné.
I know you don't really rate her as much, and I kind of get what you. I understand where you're coming from to a certain degree. I wouldn't put her in maybe the overrated category potentially. I don't know, whatever. But I agree. I don't think she's going to be the fucking savior of AEW. You look at the business that she did for New Japan when she came in at the Wrestle Kingdom show last year, 2023. There was lots of reports that came out about like buy rates and sort of impact and things like that. You think if she could make an impact with somebody, it would be somebody like a New Japan, and it really didn't make that much of a difference. There is the only thing that is going to change the way or the impact of AEW right now is getting Tony Khan off the book and giving it to somebody, and they need a star. They need a star. She's not the star to do this.
No, not at all.
They need a. I don't mean this in terms of like going to be on the fucking cover of like magazines and on the newspapers and on billboards and stuff. Like they need a mainstream standout star. That's easier said than done. It took Vince lots and lots of failed attempts to find people like that. He had obviously the winners, but there was lots of fucking failures as well. So it's a hard thing to do in wrestling. They need to rewind back a little bit to when they were doing some good shit. That was a period in time when they had a certain person called CM Punk who was there doing some good shit. So it's hard. It's hard. I don't think she's going to do what we think. Yeah. If it is her, chances are it probably will be. If so, cool. It'll be good to see her back in wrestling. I enjoy her work. I think she's cool. If it is Okada, I'll be gutted because I want him to go to WWE and I want him to have a match at a pay-per-view first so I can see John wear a Celtic shirt.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
Don't know what you're talking about.
It's in the annals of time. It's out in the ether, guys. You all heard it. But all joking aside, I'm not really that excited. I'm not really turned on about it, regardless. So, yeah. It's one of them.
I just want to touch upon the point you made about, like, they need a star. Now, I agree with you. They do. They need a star there. But getting a star is one thing. But keeping them and maintaining them as a star is a completely different thing. Or being able to keep the star happy. Because they've had your CM Punk. Didn't work. They had a bona fide star in Edge coming in. Shat the bed with Edge. Instantly. MGF is, Edge is, and he's his own. He's an illegal by himself in AEW, right? Like, he is the anomaly for AEW, right? And then you've got Wardlow. They made Wardlow into a potential star, and then shat the bed with him.
Yeah,
they're trying like their damnedest to get Adam Page over. For me, he's never going to work. He's just not for me. Kenny Omega. Kenny's a talented individual, right? I think he's got an idea. Overrated as shit, don't get it, but he could have been their star, but he's just so full of his own self-importance.
Loves the smell of his own farts too much.
Yeah, so they're pushing the wrong people, and when they do actually have people that are the stars, they don't know what to do with them. So for me, I agree with you 100%. They need to get the book away from Tony, but he's got the checkbook, right? It's like Dixie Carter all over again for TNA.
Yep. This is my ball, and I will
absolutely
play with whoever I want to play with. Yeah.
Speaking of TNA, Hoxie.
Yes.
See what I did there?
Great.
Thanks.
Absolute pro.
I'll try my best. What can I say? Yes. So there was news with TNA again. I don't know if you take this one away, Hoxie.
So it came out recently. Was it yesterday? Day before? Oh my God! It's one. I've lost a day this week. By the way, I lost my Tuesday. I thought it was Wednesday today, and I was, what have I done on Tuesday? No idea. I had to check my works diary to see what the fuck I did with my life on Tuesday. That's ridiculous. Anyway, Scott D'Amore, whatever you want to say, Scotty Love, the TNA director. President? What was it? It's president, right?
Yeah.
Was relieved of his duties. Was released by TNA Wrestling yesterday. By the owners of TNA Anthem. Is it Anthem Sports? Anthem Sports.
Anthem Sports and Entertainment.
Oh, get in the bin. Anyway, Is a huge blindside. Huge blindside. TNA have been since he sort of took over as the president. They've been doing some of their best stuff.
Yep.
They've started to sort of pull the nose up on this. This plane was flying very, very high in the sky, by the way. It's been falling for a long time. And they've managed to sort of try and pull the nose up on this lately. They've had some really good pay-per-views. They've had some really good matches. They've had guys like Will Ospreay, like, wrestle on their shows. Like, they've had some really big things happen. We talked about this last week. Jordan Grace was at the Royal Rumble, having an amazing showing. This crossover. And then it comes out that he gets fired. Now, there's more to it. So apparently, him and the guy who I think I'm trying to find his name. I had it on here. Basically, one of the bosses at Anthem, they had a bit of a disagreement about the way that they wanted to move forward with things.
Yep.
And obviously, you can't really fight with the owner because they own the shit. You know what I mean? Or the big boss. And there's only one outcome with that. Unless if you don't come to an agreement, you're going to agree to disagree. And one of you guys is going to go. And it's definitely not going to be the guy who's higher up in that business. You know what I mean? So I can imagine in my brain, in my little mind's eye, that Scott's been like, look, we're doing some amazing stuff. Give me some more money. I want to sign guys like Will Ospreay. I want to sign... I bet he probably made a move for like Okada or something. You know what I mean? I want to get these guys in on bigger contracts and pay these some more money.
Yep.
And the guys at Anthem have went, nah, you're all right. And he's like, oh, what do you want me to do? You're asking me to probably try and compete with an AEW with this endless budget, or not an endless budget, but a big old fucking budget, with pennies that are found then behind the sofa. Like, and they've had a discussion, an argument. He might have gave them an ultimatum or had a bit of a Barney, and they've went, do you know what? It's not going to work. See you later. And it's been like, oh, shit, okay. I mean, everybody's come out, haven't they? Like, talent, backstage people have come out supporting Scott. Like, what the fuck's going on? This is ridiculous. This is going to be a big mess up. This is going to be you're going to be a big miss. Blah, 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 blah. Loads of people have been tweeting and posting and sharing stuff or whatever. I just think it's a crazy, crazy situation to be in. And I know no one is bigger than the company. Like, no one's bigger than TNA or no one's bigger than WWE. Fuck me. Even Vince isn't bigger than WWE right now. Yeah, so it's one of them, you know what I mean? So it's a real crazy situation. Guys, Anthony Ciccione has been brought in, hasn't he, to replace him, who I think is a bit more of a company guy by all accounts than somebody like a Scott D'Amore. I don't think Anthony Ciccione is a wrestling guy.
No, he's not.
He's an Anthem guy. He's a media guy, right?
Yes, yeah. So I think the talent weren't happy with that because apparently he spoke to the talent and it was a prepared statement, so it didn't actually come from him. So the new president was it was the company line.
Going through the fucking motions.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, interestingly, I don't know if you've heard this though, but apparently a few weeks prior, Scott D'Amore actually went to Anthem with an offer to buy TNA from them. Yeah,
I did hear about this. He's tried to buy them. Yeah.
So apparently he had like a major bank like backing him as well, and they turned him down, and then you just wonder if that's been a case of he wants the place. And it is a shame because TNA
too big for his boots or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a shame because, like you said, he steadied the ship. He's got TNA.
I haven't watched the TNA thing in years, and then I watched the Will Ospreay match. Like, I went out my way to watch the pay-per-view with that match on. Like, some of the matches on there were really good. Like, Machine Guns is doing crazy stuff right now. They had like some of the Japanese guys come across. Like, it's.
Dolph's there now, you know.
Dolph, Josh Alexander is fucking brilliant. Like,
phenomenal.
He's great. So I went out my way and watched the show for the first time in a long time, in years and years.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting move, but it's business. It's business. You know what it's like, mate. Things change.
Things do change.
Plans change, pal.
Speaking of business, though, you know, there are a few exciting things happening for Mark Out of Town. We're not in a position to reveal them just yet, but we're definitely in discussions with bits and pieces, right, Hoxie?
We are, mate. We are.
So we'll when we hear more about it, you'll hear more about it.
You'll hear more about it.
It's very, very exciting. So yeah, it's good. Okay, I think that's the news done, Hawks. Unless you've got anything else that's came to your beautiful mind, we can just keep on going.
We're okay.
Oklahoma. So, Hawks, we've done the news, so we'll go back to our list just now. So it's the top 10 crowd reactions. I believe it's me, yes? I think it's
I think so, mate.
Yeah, my number 5, it's something that you have already talked upon. It is the CM Punk return to WWE. It was unexpected. You mentioned it yourself, the actual production of the match. It got to the end, there was no CM Punk, there was still no CM Punk, and then there was the little copyright sign on the bottom left or right or whatever it was at that time. And you're like, oh, fuck, there's actually no CM Punk. And then it's the riff. It's like, and the pop was insane. You didn't touch upon it, but there were 2 pops.
2 pops.
Yeah,
yep.
2 pops for this.
It
was the music hitting, and then it was when he came out. And we've mentioned it a few times. He looked healthy. He looked every bit the badass that we know.
10 years younger. Literally looked 10 years younger than he did in AW. It's mad.
So yeah, his return to WWE has to be on that list, just because if you go and watch it, as Hoxie said before, just go and watch it, and if you don't have goosebumps, that I just don't know what's wrong with you. Go and get yourself tested.
You're not a wrestling fan.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just for me, it had to be on the list. Again, short and sweet. You've already talked about it, but yeah, Punk return to WWE had to be on that list for me because it was an epic moment. They trolled us good. It was a well kept secret. Everybody was like. It was a great swerve, and we don't get that very often in wrestling anymore with social media, etc. They did really well to keep that under wraps. Everybody was reporting he's not signing, he's not appearing in the Survivor Series, and again, it's that chef's kiss moment where they did that copyright sign at the bottom left or right. They did good. They did good, Hoxie.
They're doing good.
Okay, my friend, over to you. Your number 5.
This is quite funny. So my 5 is Money in the Bank 2011. CM Punk.
Okay. CM Punk.
The match where he beats Cena for the title. We talk about like long-term storytelling. We talk about, this was obviously we spoke about this match before on the best pay-per-view, best matches podcast that we did. So I won't go too much into like the sort of ins and outs, but the culmination of all of that, the fact that they waited, the crowd were just chanting CM Punk's name for like what seemed like forever before his fucking music hit. Just from the second I was talking about earlier on at the Rock and Hogan, like people just go in there pretty much for that. That whole building was sold out for that match. You could have had 3 or 4 of the worst matches in the history of mankind on that pay-per-view beforehand. It doesn't matter. The crowd wouldn't have cared. They were there to watch that match. The long-term storytelling, the bringing the John Laurinaitis, the play on the Montreal screw job with Vince coming down. Even Cena got a big pop, a reaction for knocking Laurinaitis out. So he still managed to keep his fucking face heat, which was amazing. Yeah. But as soon as Punk picked him up and hit him with that GTS, there was pop. Reaction 1. Mm-hmm. There was a reaction on the 3 count. A huge reaction on the 3 count. You get the reaction of Punk holding the belt and actually winning the title. And then you get the sitting on the fucking barrier. And then they're standing up in the fucking crowd with a belt and then fucking off home. Like, it was just build upon build upon build upon build. You don't think that a crowd could be that like crazy and that into stuff. You don't think that would happen, but it's just a reaction, just an unreal reaction all the way through. You think it builds to a crescendo and then it goes to another level, and you think it builds, it goes to another level, just constant. It's one of my favorite matches of all time. Part of it is because of all of that, is that reaction and that pop. It's just relentless, and I love it. I love it. The more and more we've done this podcast, Shields, the more and more that I've realized how much of a CM Punk fan I actually am.
Yeah.
It's like becoming a more and more apparent to me about how much that I like CM Punk and love CM Punk. So it's interesting that he's on here.
Punk's a throwback, though, right? He's a throwback to a time where, you know, you fell in love with wrestling. You could lift him and put him into that era, and he'd fit.
And he'll fit.
You know, that's what it is.
He makes me feel
he's
stuff,
different.
Mate. He makes me feel.
Exactly. He makes you feel. It's like it's similar to an MGF type thing. It's that same vein, you know, in terms of you put him in any era of wrestling and he'd just be an absolute superstar. I think what's really good about this one isn't on my list, but I totally get it, and I agree with you. It's the sort of the build up to it as well. It's just phenomenal, and this is one of those where it blurs the lines because you don't really know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I was really disappointed with,
Cena as well, isn't it? Right?
Exactly, yeah. Because everybody thought, right, there's no chance that Cena's, you know,
he's going to do the job.
He's going to win it. Yeah, he's going to. Yeah, exactly. So that was a complete swerve. I think they did shit the bed though, with the booking of it afterwards. I've always maintained. What they should have done was put Punk to like indie shows with the belt. You know, make him go to like have an agreement with a TNA, go to like a Japan show, go to like a little fucking gymnasium
or whatever.
Yeah, go to a gymnasium or something. Have him there with the belt.
Or back to Ring of Honor, for fuck's sake. Yeah.
Go to Ring of Honor, go to ICW in the UK, you know, have that. And because it was a really short time, because it wasn't a long time he was away, right, before he came back. But if you extend that out,
dude. I love that.
You know,
honestly, I love that booking. It's great. Great show.
You know, you extend it out, and he got a great pop, obviously, when Rey Mysterio won. It was Rey that won it, or was it? It
was Rey.
It was Rey, wasn't it?
She was champ for like a show or whatever, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It was like 10 minutes. Fucking stupid or whatever. Yeah.
You know, and the pop was great. But can you imagine if this was like a 6-month Punk away with the belt? You know, and Punk going into different shows, like to a TNA. Obviously, at TNA at the time it wouldn't have happened, but a Ring of Honor. You know, you go to
getting
Japan.
That groundswell of stuff happening. People talking about like, "Whoa, what the fuck's going on here?" Like,
and you know, and they had the power then. Even with social media, it wasn't so prevalent back then. It was the starter. It didn't need to be like advertised on Raw or whatever, but it could have been done on social media. You know, it's a case of CM Punk spotted, the real WWE champion spotted in this little gymnasium in like North Carolina or something, you know, Flair country, and that, you know, just shit like that. And then can you imagine 6 months having the same sort of thing where Rey wins it, not on Raw, but on a pay-per-view, or John Cena wins it on a pay-per-view.
Or someone wins the Rumble, mate. You have it for that long. Whoever wins the Rumble, he walks out and being like, well, do you want to fucking go for the real title at Mania? Like,
exactly. So yeah, it would have been so fucking good. But so I was really disappointed. But yeah, the actual match itself was fucking phenomenal. And that, again, you think about moments in time in wrestling. Him sitting on the barricade with that kiss to Vince, and it was, you know, for Vince's flaws, his facials were like.
I've heard his facials are amazing. Yeah.
Too soon, man. Too soon.
What?
Good shit. So CM Punk Money in the Bank 2011 is not on my list, but it was on my wider list. Again, is what it is. But yeah, phenomenal show. So good. Again, that was a Chicago crowd, wasn't it?
It was. Yep.
You know, Punk Country.
Punk Country.
Okay, Hoxie, over to your number.
I still love it. My number 4. Very simple. My boy Edge returning at the Royal Rumble. There's few occasions in wrestling where it's brought me to literal tears. I remember exactly where I was. I was in a hotel room, and I was using the jankiest internet to actually stream me watching this. I think you were watching along on stream with me at the time. There was no camera on. There was just a microphone and me. And it was just when I started my job, which I work for now. So I was in a hotel room down south, training, basically, and I needed to watch this pay-per-view. And I had completely spoiler-free, saw nothing. And as soon as that Metalingus hit, it's all over me now. Like, I was like a schoolgirl. It's a good job the camera wasn't on when I was streaming, because everyone would have been laughing at me. I was fucking crying like a little girl. Genuinely, it was just the best thing. There was, 40,000, whatever, 35,000, 40,000 people. It was the baseball stadium, wasn't it? That Royal Rumble. No one knew it. Another great swerve, another great surprise.
Yep.
No one expected it. And for him to come back after so long, after retiring, and no one ever thought he would ever going to be able to come back. Even just him standing there once all the smoke clears, and he sort of stood there and he's like actually realizing what's going on, and it gets all over him as well. I went again. But that, you think you know me, just fucking like everyone just up. There was not a dry eye in the house or a quiet person in the fucking whole place. It was incredible. One of my favorite things that's ever happened in wrestling, regardless of like reactions or pops, is him coming back, and the reaction and the crowd reaction. We're talking about big pops and that now. It's one of the biggest ever. Like, if you could do like a decibel meter and like fucking like measured some of the biggest pops in history, it's going to be in there. It's going to be in there. Just one of the best, man. It just gets all over me. I love it. Makes me emotional now just thinking about it. I watch it back and it pops up like on a YouTube short every so often or whatever, on a video or something, and it just gets all over me. I love it. Love it. Edge, Royal Rumble.
Talk about it shortly.
I thought so. Thought so. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to my number 4. It's again, it's pops throughout this particular segment, and it's a Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it's when he comes back and fucks up the alliance. Basically, he starts.
He just goes and stunners everybody.
He goes
the
in,
invasion angle one,
But it's such a great. Again, it's a sustained pop because it stems from, I think it's the week before, where Vince McMahon is talking about we need the old Stone Cold, we need him, we don't want the guitar player, we want the ass kicker, we want this blah 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 blah, and and I'll always remember the sort of the promo package where Stone Cold Steve Austin's walking up the ramp, and then Vince goes, "Damn it, give me a stunner, damn it," and then Stone Cold stops, and you expect him to turn around, and he just keeps on walking. It's that promo package, but it's when Raw cuts to like a bar and Stone Cold is playing pool, and then Classy Freddie Blassie is doing his sort of promo bit to get the troops all going, and then Stone Cold starts to go fucking crazy and cracks the pool cue on the table, and that's the first pop from the crowd. You hear it in the background.
I don't know if you can see that on camera, guys, but just John telling me about this is giving me goosebumps.
and then it all kicks off the Alliance versus WWF, and it's not just in the ring, but it's backstage as well, and the Alliance are getting the better of WWF. It's like, oh my god, what's happening? And then the truck screeches to a halt. He comes out with his pool cue and fucking batters fuck out of it. I think it was it Raven at that point, and there's a whole host of like what was his face? I can't remember his name, but it doesn't matter. And then he goes through the building and beats the shit out of everybody else with a pool cue, and then the crowd are there. The crowd are in for it. And then the glass smash. And then the fucking crowd goes insane. And the person that makes it even better in terms of a moment is Jim Ross.
Jim Ross. Yeah.
The greatest of all time. It's the old Stone Cold. Oh, he's walking. Oh, he's talking. And then he goes in and just stunners every single motherfucker in that ring. And the crowd, it's like a sustained pop from the glass breaking to like the last stunner. And then... So that's the start of it, and then you have the other WWF Alliance versus Alliance, the Survivor Series, I think it was, and it's like Taker and Kane do the double choke slam, and then you have like Kurt Angle doing his angle slam, Jericho doing the lion salt, and then as all the smoke is cleared, all the dust is settled, WWF get back in their feet, Kurt Angle gets lifted on his feet, and the crowd pops again, and it's just, in terms of storytelling, I think that particular segment just shows what WWF, or at that time WWE, is all about in terms of they know how to get that pop. And sorry, yeah, it's just fucking
they know how to
goosebumps,
do
man.
it right. They know how to do it.
It's fucking goosebumps. It's just
when it's right,
pure,
mate. There's
pure
nothing
magic.
better. When there's right, there's nothing
Pure,
better
pure
in this
magic.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the best.
Insane.
Man. Just the best.
So yes, number 4 was Stone Cold Steve Austin Alliance angle, where he comes back and just beats the shit out of everyone. Fucking great.
Yeah. Phenomenal, mate. Phenomenal.
Okay. Moving on swiftly, my number 3 is one you've just talked about, Edge's return to the Royal Rumble. I think it was the ultimate swerve. No one expected it. It was one of the best kept secrets in like wrestling. He was coming back, but I think because you knew the story of Edge, why he had to retire, and I think that just made it a little bit more special. You know, in terms of no one saw it coming, and you could have 100 guesses, and that's the magic of the Rumble, and that's why for me the Men's Royal Rumble was really quite not disappointing, but it wasn't as good as other Royal Rumbles because there was no swerve. You know, we had Andrade coming back, which was great, but you know, this is the sort of pinnacle.
There was no Booker T or Kevin Nash like Diesel coming.
Yeah, there's no cheap pop.
Yeah.
You know, a Booker T or a Diesel or like a Goldust coming back or a Mr. Perfect. You know, that was a great Royal Rumble as well when Mr. Perfect came back.
Yes. Yeah.
But that wasn't a cheap pop. This was a pop that actually meant something because Edge retired when he was on top. You know, and he retired not because he wanted to. Yeah, it's not because he wanted to. It's because he had to. You know, that's the difference. And I think it was just pure magic. And again, you saw the emotion on his face. Like he must have been worried that would the fans still know, because it was a long period of time he was out for. You know, it's like, and I think it just shows the connection he had with these fans. And I think this is what frustrates me about AEW, because they have a bona fide star in Edge and they just shat the bed with him, and it's really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as that "You Think You Know Me" hits, it's like just goosebumps just even thinking
one of the
about
best wrestling themes ever.
Fucking insane. So
look at last week's episode.
Yeah, check out our back catalogue.
Yeah.
So for me, again, just re-emphasising what you said, Hoxie, Edge return to the Royal Rumble is just phenomenal, and that's my number 3.
Yeah. It was nearly number 3, which is funny because we would have had exactly the fucking same thing again. But my number 3, it was just pipped to the post, and it was very, very close. Very, very. It could have been a gimme to both of them. Is an episode of Raw, halfway through a Rock promo. We get a countdown, and we get the introduction and the debut of Chris Jericho. Raw is Jericho. I think it was August 9th, 1999, which is weird that I remember that date. I think it is. John, you will be Googling this while I'm talking about it. Just prove me right or prove me wrong. If that's right, I forgot. I probably forgot me and my missus' anniversary to remember that fucking date. It's so strange. But it's one of my most played moments. It's one of my goosebump moments. It's one of my favorite moments in wrestling. Jericho, up until recently, was my favorite wrestler of all time. He's not doing himself any favors right now, so it sort of dropped him down a bit. I say a bit, quite a lot. But him making that jump from WCW and interrupting The Rock, and you're already a made man doing that. You know what I mean? The way you're brought in at that level. They shit the bed a little bit with him afterwards. They really did. They really did. Yep. Self-admittedly by them and him. But you get brought in as that. You got that big countdown. You get the big Y2J thing coming on, and all that stuff. Just as soon as you see smash my microphone there. As soon. Shh, we're okay. As soon as we see the Titantron and it all goes dark and the smoke comes up, and then that Jericho name turns on that Titantron, and the reaction of that crowd when they see that Jericho, because they don't know who it is. They really don't know. There's no connection to a countdown with Jericho when he was in WCW. There's no introduction to that. There's no fucking like promo packages or vignettes that had been done. It was like, what is this fucking countdown? Like, what's going on? And that, you know what I mean? That, and then then the music hits and the Jericho turns and it's just explosive. And I watch it now, it gives me goosebumps. I remember watching it when I was a kid, like 12 years old, 11 years old, just before my birthday.
Yep.
I remember watching it at my mate's house and just being like, this is just one of the best, coolest things ever. And I didn't really know WCW that much back then. Like, I used to watch it a little bit when it was, because it used to be on like Channel 5 sometimes and stuff, but I didn't really know Jericho as much. I wasn't a big fan. But when I saw that introduction and him, then I was like, I'm fucking sold on this guy. This guy's amazing. His little ponytail and his sparkly shirt is just badass. And yeah, it has to be towards the top for me because it's one of my most watched things. And it just, it gets all over me, fills me with joy, gives me the goosebumps, gives me all the feels, as the cool kids say. Number 3, Jericho debuts on Raw.
Yeah, I think for a guy that was mid-carder at best in WCW, he wasn't highly thought of in WCW.
Not for the want of trying, though. Not for the want of trying.
No, absolutely.
It was a victim of circumstance.
Mid-carder at best, and then, as you say, to be put like against The Rock on the mic for your debut, I mean, you are a main man.
Skyrocket in flight.
And and that entrance is one of the best entrances. So it's one of the best debuts, but the Jericho entrance in general is just one of the best entrances, I think, when you think of like key WWE entrances. It's phenomenal. It's not on my list, but to be fair, it was on my wider list. It was pipped out fairly late on. And I sort of had an inclination that this would be on your list as well, to be fair. But yeah, Y2J... he's not doing himself any favours, but you still have to sort of respect what he did. If you take away the AEW sort of side of it, because I haven't liked his AEW run.
If you take away AEW, he's one of the greatest of all time.
100%. He is potentially the best person that has ever remodelled his own character.
Is constant reinvention.
Yeah, complete reinvention.
Constant
and
reinvention.
I think he is probably the best at that out of everyone.
He said he got that from like the Beatles and Mick Jagger and all that sort of stuff. He states it's a lot to do with his music side that he gets that from. If you're not moving and you're stale, you need to do something about it. Which I think is quite clever, really. It's quite clever because you can do that in anything in life, or whatever, absolutely. Business or whatever. It's quite clever. But yeah, he's take away his AW stuff. And people will argue the fact with his AW stuff, whatever, but he's not done himself any favours, but he's one of the greatest of all time. He really is. Yeah,
you cannot compare Jericho from WWE to Jericho in AEW. It's not possible.
Yeah. Even his New Japan stuff was sick. The Painmaker stuff.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Omega and Naito and all that sort of stuff. It's great.
So
really
good
stuff. Yep.
Excellent, Hoxie. Your number 3 is a excellent shout. Moving on to your number 2.
This was hard.
Okay.
So, my number 1 and my number 2, this is the hard, usually, I think we said this before, usually my number 1 is like, it's the first one on the list. Locked in, easy. This is the closest, if not a gimme, than any list that I've ever done doing this podcast. Wow. Okay? But I'm just going to go with the way that it makes me felt then, and makes me feel when I watch it back, and makes me feel now. My number 2 it's another CM Punk moment. Okay. It's CM Punk returns to wrestling. That Rampage moment, that Rampage, the first show, that first Rampage in Chicago.
That's my number 2 too.
We'll talk about this together then, yeah?
Yeah.
So, like, having him come back after that long, and we were so ready for it. I was so ready for it. Wrestling was ready for it. AEW couldn't have been any more ready for it. They needed it. They needed this guy to come back and make this sort of an impact. I remember where I was. I remember what I was wearing. I remember who I was with. I remember how light it was outside. I can remember the weather. I can remember what I was, like I said, just every single thing about that moment in time. I remember watching it. I remember crying. I remember watching the first 10, 15 minutes of it. I remember rewinding it back. I remember watching it again and crying again and just getting all over me and being enthused and excited and reinvigorated about watching wrestling again with my dude there, my guy's back. Like Kelly was next to me. We watched it in our bedroom upstairs. I plugged my laptop into my TV to watch it. And I was trying to explain to Kelly how much of a big deal of what is happening is happening. I wasn't with Kelly when Punk. I've been with Kelly for a long time. Punk wasn't really around then.
No.
And I tried to explain to her what kind of a big deal it was. It was like, okay, like I said, I need to watch it. Like I'm going to put it on, whatever plans we've had tonight or whatever. We're going to stop what we're going to do now. And I'm going to watch this. Okay. She watched 10 minutes of it. She watched the first minute of that show when it came on and the commentators didn't say anything. It was just a crowd just going ballistic, chanting his name. And when that cult of personality hit and the reaction and fucking hell, mate, it's ridiculous. Like total goosebumps. She was like, okay. Kelly's not a wrestling fan. She just tolerates it almost because of me. And she was like, okay, I get it now. It took a minute, literally 2 minutes or whatever for her to understand how much of a big deal it was. So for a non-wrestling fan who doesn't really get it and doesn't really understand who CM Punk was or is or whatever, for her to see that and have a reaction, and then for me to have my own personal reaction of it and how much that means to me, it's one of my most favorite moments in wrestling ever. Not necessarily just the pop, but fuck me, man. They sold out that show in like, what was it, 20 minutes?
Somewhere.
I think they
just
sold
on
out just on
the
rumor.
Yeah.
The rumor that he might be there. I don't think that's ever happened before in wrestling. There's a very,
WWE. Survivor Series. So, but again, CM Punk. You know what I mean? It's
I think WWE would have sold that out anyway. They would have sold that show out.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think with AEW, it was like we need to get these tickets. This is going to happen. If it didn't happen, fuck me, there would have been a riot in Chicago that night. But I don't think anything like that has really happened in wrestling. To be fair, I think that's a really important. I think we will look back and we talk about like important moments, like a Hulk Hogan slams Andre or whatever, these Montreal screw job and all that sort of stuff. I think we'll look back in 20, 30, 40 years time or whatever, and we will see that moment as a very, very pinnacle, like poignant moment in wrestling history, for good or for bad. There's a lot of story after that, but that will be a big, big moment in history. And for that reason, it's important. But just for me personally, to have that guy come back and have that reaction and have that pop, it had to be towards the top of my list. It is so close. I'm almost talking myself to put having it as my number one, but we'll go to my number one and I'll be okay. But it makes me emotional thinking about it now. It makes me like just thinking back to when I know exactly where I was and what I was doing. And this was how many years ago? 3-4 years ago, whatever it was, 3 years ago, whatever. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It was a visceral roar when that music hit.
Guttural.
It was just
everything out.
Everything. It was like years of pent up frustration that the wrestling fans didn't have them there for, and that release just sustained through the entire segment. So there was that major pop. So we said when he returned to WWE, it was exactly the same, but this was a different level. This was crazy. And then we talked about multiple pops. So, I mean, obviously he came out and there was the pop, but you are the guy when you can unzip your jacket and get a pop and then cross your legs in the middle of the ring and sit down, and the pop was fucking
You've said
insane.
fuck all. You've said no. He didn't even say clobbering time. He pointed at his fucking wrist and they done it for him.
They did it for him. That's it.
Yeah.
It was... never experienced. So I said at the beginning with Triple H, I'd never experienced anything like that in terms of his return up until that moment. That it's mind-boggling how big a pop that was, and you know, he's this generation's Hogan. You know, he's this generation's Stone Cold. He has to be put in that bracket. You know, in terms of, you know, everybody goes on about Roman Reigns as the GOAT. You know, he's the longest reign, but fucking hell, man, Reigns isn't going to get that pop if he went away for 8, 9, 10 years. You know, and comes back.
He'll get a reaction, but not that level. That's stratospheric, isn't it? Different
levels, man. It's just different levels. That's what it comes down to. He has, you know, he's the voice of the voiceless. You know, he is the voice. He is the guy that changed the status quo of what a wrestler should be. You know, he is the guy that, he isn't the bodybuilder type that Vince likes, but he made Vince push him. You know, he forced it upon him because he just got so over by himself. And then when he went away, obviously it was well documented, the issues he had in WWE at the very end. And then he was adamant he wasn't coming back. And then it was the stars, the moon and the planets and everything aligned, and he came back, and the pop was just it. You know, and I genuinely don't think we'll see anything like it in our lifetime again in wrestling. I mean, never say never.
I hope we do.
Absolutely.
This is what wrestling is about. These moments, right? Not necessarily these pops or whatever. It's these moments. We live for these moments. We have it in sport, like. Maybe not for you, but for like in England might win a World Cup. There's more chance of that happening than Scotland winning the World Cup, right? Or what, you know what I mean? Sunderland winning the league, or getting to a fucking final, or an English team winning the Champions League in the last fucking minute, like a Man United beating Bayern Munich in Barcelona. Like, it's all about these moments in time. And this is, wrestling gives that, because it's that beautiful fine line between the pageantry and the sport and the real life, and you get this just mix of every emotion guided to this one point, and when it hits, there's nothing better, and this is what it's all about, is these moments in time, and that's what we want. That's what we want to see. Yeah.
And I think it's testament to the fact that, you know, how good it is, the fact that it's on our list at number 2, and I don't know. We might have the same number 1. I'm not sure. It could be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
But before we get to our number 1s, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, as Hoxie says, why not? Go and listen to every episode we've done so far. We have what's called an honourable mention. So it's something that should be on the list, but we need an extra slot. So yeah, we cheat and have 11 choices basically. So our honourable mentions are going to be interesting. So my honourable mention, because it is my turn, because I was CM Punk as well, is one that you've already mentioned as well, is WrestleMania 18, Rock versus Hogan. And the reason I put it as my honourable mention is because it was, as you said, it was from the very beginning of the event. That's what sold that event. So it was a pop or a crowd reaction right through. So I didn't feel it was appropriate just to put it on my list. I thought it was worthy of being on the list, but because it had such a massive impact on the entire event, it was incredible. It was that match. I've never seen a crowd pop but turn and pop for the other guy. I still to this day haven't seen that. You know what I mean? It's like if they're popping for The Rock and then 10 minutes into the match it switches and then they're popping for Hogan and booing The Rock. I've never seen a crowd change like that, and it's just so fluid and natural. And the fact that they called it like the audible in the ring, right? This is what we're now doing because we can feel it, we know, we can hear it. It's just a thing of beauty. We've talked about the match, you've talked about it earlier, but yeah, that Rock versus Hogan's very, very special. And, you know, for a large portion of the beginning of the match, they didn't do anything. They just stood there. You know,
it was like
that face to face.
When they both look in those different directions.
And they come back
and then they look the other side. Like,
You can't
for
write
production
that, man.
value and stuff, like to get those angles, and like as you say, those guys being clever enough to understand, let's work this. Like you said, they don't need to do anything. They could have stood there for another 5 minutes, and the crowd would have been reacting the same way. They would have been reacting exactly the same way. It's just, yeah, special
moment. That's it.
Yep.
And a WrestleMania moment to cap that off as well.
Big
So
time.
yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because you've already talked about it yourself. But yeah, 18 Rock versus Hogan is my honourable mention. Over to you, Mr. Hawks.
My honourable mention is a bit of a blindside, bit of a random one. We're going to go back to 2017 now, and we're going to look at the United Kingdom Championship tournament.
Okay.
So we're going to basically look at Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne in the final of that tournament. Now, this is going to be mainly more for personal reasons than it's going to be for anything else. Tyler, I used to train with Tyler Bate. He was like one of my pals. I trained with him. So I've got this scar on my wrist, the pin holding my wrist and my arm together off an elbow drop that I hit on him off the top rope. It's my claim to fame. I watched this, and I've never been so proud of anything to do with wrestling in my whole life. I didn't achieve this. Like, it wasn't me. I'm not going to say I had any hand in this whatsoever. But to see Pete, who I've travelled with and been on shows with, and Tyler, who was one of my pals. Like, I was talking to him like on fucking Facebook, like literally coming into this tournament like a few days before, and he didn't let on that it was happening. He was going to be part of it and all this sort of stuff. It was just an amazing thing. And to see him and Pete go in there, and they've wrestled each other thousands of times before, and to go in there on a WWE event, like premium live event or whatever you want to call it on that network, get to the final and then Tyler win was just the best thing. There was about 3,000 people in that ballroom in Blackpool. They had a match, 25 minute match, which was insane. The reaction when Tyler wins that match is phenomenal. It's an incredible pop. The British fans make things. They make their events. We really do. I was sat in bed. I was with Kelly, and I was just crying, just like with happiness and pride, just proud of what those boys did and proud of what Tyler did. And British wrestling was gonna change because it was now in the spotlight of a WWE. A Triple H was involved in what was going on with these guys. Like, you've got Mandrews on there, you had Pete Dunne, you had Dan Maloney, Trent Seven, like the Scottish guys, like Wolfgang was on there, Jordan Devlin, who's now what's his name now? He's with Fergal, with Prince, with oh my god,
JD McDonough.
Yeah, JD McDonough. Yeah, he's with what they called
Judgment Day.
The Judgment Day. Like Tyson was there, like T-Bone. I used to be on shows with T-Bone and wrestle with T-Bone and train with T-Bone and stuff, and just these amazing guys that would go on there and have this show. And as soon as Tyler hit that Tyler Driver 97 and won that belt, fuck me, man. That was just, and the reaction and the pop from that was a big thing. And I said to you before we came, or just before we started recording, this popped into my head as I was finishing everything off, and I was like, oh my god. And it had to make my honorable mention, just for the pride. I just feel, I can remember watching it. I can remember jumping on Messenger and messaging Tyler and just being like, mate, I fucking love you, man. Like, that's just I was so proud and so happy for this kid. Just the best thing. Yeah, the best thing. So personally, it was a big deal, but it was a big reaction as well. It was a huge pop. 3,000 people in Blackpool. And they reacted like 10,000 people. Just the best thing. It's great.
They are different gravy, though, right? You said it yourself. Yeah. UK crowds, they
don't fuck about. I've been to NXT takeovers over here. I've been to Cardiff. I've been to Blackpool, and dude, dude, we've got it all. We've got it all.
Goosebump time, and it's great to see Tyler Bate beat on SmackDown with Pete Dunne just now as well. It's just phenomenal. So that's a great personal story, and that's what we always discussed in terms of Mark out of 10. We obviously have our opinions on wrestling, but Hoxie's got a unique insight in terms of wrestling because he is a wrestler. He knows a lot of UK wrestlers. He's met them, and I love the sort of personal feel to that. So yeah, it's really cool, Hoxie. Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so now, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the business end. We are number one, but what we usually do is we'll read through our 10 to honourable mention, and then Hoxie will give his number one first, and then it's me, I believe. That's the way it should go. But I'll start with mine. So my number 10 was Hogan slamming Andre. Number 9 was Daniel Bryan leaving the Wyatt family. Number 8 was Bulldog beating Bret Hart at SummerSlam 92. Number 7 was Dolph Ziggler winning the heavyweight title, cashing in the Money in the Bank against Alberto Del Rio. Number 6 was Triple H's return at Madison Square Gardens after his quad injury. Number 5 was Punk returning to WWE at Survivor Series. Number 4 was Austin coming back and beating the crap out of the Alliance. Number 3 was Edge coming back at the Royal Rumble. Number 2, Punk returning to wrestling in AEW. And my honourable mention is WrestleMania 18, Rock versus Hogan. Over to you.
My number 10 was Hogan slamming Andre at Mania. Number 9, The Hardys return, WrestleMania 33. Number 8, Canadian Stampede in your house, 97. Number 7, Punk returns at Survivor Series. Number 6, Rock versus Hogan, Mania 18. Number 5, CM Punk Money in the Bank, 2011. Number 4, Edge returns at the Royal Rumble. Number 3, Jericho debuts. Number 2, Punk returns to wrestling. And my honourable mention is NXT TakeOver Tournament Final. Tyler Bate beating Pete Dunne.
Great shout. Yeah. Great shout. And Hoxie, your number one of your top 10 crowd moments, best pops that you think of. Your number one is...
Stone Cold comes back to help Mick Foley at Raw.
Number one.
You got the same?
Yeah, same one. Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah, it is the biggest pop in wrestling history. I think the ultimate pop. We talk about like Road Warrior pop. It's like a term, isn't it? The Stone Cold Foley pop needs to probably be it rather than the Road Warrior pop. You've got New Age Outlaws are in there. You've got like
Shamrock, Mankind Rock.
It's all going off. It's all going off basically. And you have The Rock against Mankind. Lol schmoz, loads of stuff going on. All this fighting and crap happening, and people have been chair shotted and fucking all this stuff kicking off. And then all you hear is the glass smash. And you have Stone Cold coming in to basically restore a little bit of order, shall we say. Gives The Rock the old gimmick. Ding dang do. Foley crawls onto him. Ref turns around. 1, 2, 3. So you get the absolutely monstrous pop from a crowd reaction from when that glass smashes, because no one's really there's a couple of people in the crowd. You watch the clip back and there's a couple of people looking towards the aisle, and that was always a bit of a thing back then, because it was like, oh, who's coming out or what's going to happen next or whatever. People used to do that. They would look, but nobody expected Stone Cold. Nobody expected that glass to smash. Nobody expected that reaction. The crowd literally erupted. The noise, like the speakers, the microphones were like peaking in the venue, like on the television and stuff. Like it didn't catch the whole noise because they were like topping out of that reaction. Just Stone Cold coming down in his fucking hunter gear with his cap on, like his and just coming in and sorting it all out. And then you get the pop for Foley. It's another moment, another important time in wrestling.
Massive.
You might have spoke about this with your bit, but that's the butts in seats moment from WCW, the Tony Schiavone. Oh, we know Mankind and Mick Foley also used to wrestle here. He wrestled over there as Mankind is going to win the WWE title. Oh, I bet that's going to put butts in seats. How many thousands was it? Was it 350,000 people turned the channel?
Something like that, yeah.
And they never came back. And that was it.
Put butts in seats and they never lifted off again.
Exactly. So it's a really poignant moment in wrestling history. It's a great moment because Foley won the championship and he fucking deserved it because he was
100%.
he was just an amazing performer. And then we have Stone Cold just comes in. Do you know what? I'm gonna have to fucking watch it, mate. I don't care. I'm gonna call an audible here. Stone Cold helps.
What I'll do at
Mankind.
this, I'll watch it as well. What I'll do is I'll put a pause in the video just now because obviously you see our faces, so I'll actually link the pop and I'll show the video on this. Okay, fuck it. If I get taken down on YouTube, I get taken down. But let's just watch it just now.
Mirror the fucking thing.
It's like 1 minute and 12 seconds of just pure noise. You know, it's like you've got the glass smash. It's like 2 seconds in, and then it's just
the commentators are screaming, and you can barely hear them. Like the commentators, it's the noise is that loud. It is over the commentator sound coming through the fucking telly.
So good.
It's just next level, and it's a tone, man. It's do you know you get like some wrestlers you come in and you have maybe more of a like a female tone or whatever. And you get some wrestlers who come in and it's more maybe deeper for the guys or whatever. It's just everything. Everyone's there for it. Stone Cold helps Mick Foley win the WWE title and Raw. Number one moment.
Number one.
Easy.
Has to be.
Easy.
I think I think Punk's return to AEW is more of a personal thing.
Yep.
Right? But
I know where you're going here.
In terms of, but this in terms of wrestling, in terms of the entire industry, for the reasons you said, the pop, for one, the glass smash, Foley winning it, deservedly so, and the moment of the sort of Monday Night Wars, this was the beginning of the end, right? It's like this is it. This is the start of it, and that pop is the thing that pushed WWE just to keep on going, keep on going, and we wouldn't have. I don't think we'd have the business as we have it now without that, and it's that moment in time again. We've talked it all through the list. It's about moments, and that is the moment in terms of crowd reactions for me. Simple.
Yep. Yeah. I was almost talking myself out of it when I was explaining my number two. But now we're on this, I'm just like, I can see why now. I can see why.
This was my number one. This was my number one from the beginning.
It was like one of the first ones on there, if you know what I mean. And then when I thought about it, it was like, oh god. But it was the closest it's been ever, like in this list, definitely.
It's like anything with Austin though, right? It's like it's the benchmark, because Austin. I mean, I know we talk about on Mount Rushmore stuff. Austin's got to be the GOAT, right? In terms of wrestling, not like in terms of in-ring ability, but in terms of everything, in terms of money brought in. We've talked about this in best WWE champions. He's got to be there. He is the benchmark. He is the gold standard.
Yep.
And this just epitomizes it. So it's awesome.
It's the ultimate moment for the ultimate professional wrestler.
Superstar.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And love it. Thank you for that, Hoxie. That's another great list. I've really enjoyed doing this one. I think
yes, very much.
We could have had a top 20 because there's so much more we could have done. Like we didn't really touch on Warrior Pops. There's so many Warrior Pops we could have done. There's
when he beat Honky Tonk for the title. That's a big one.
Ultimate Warrior's entrance.
Cena losing to Van Damme at ECW One Night Stand. That's a fucking huge pop. We look at
Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth hugging.
You've got Goldberg beating Hogan at the Georgia Dome. You've got Sting coming down from the rafters to beat fuck at the NWO. All this crazy stuff. There's lots.
Like I say, Macho Man, Miss Elizabeth at the end of the Hogan fight. Them coming back together. That pop again, emotional touch. It's
on the shoulders.
There's just just so many fucking...
We dig it.
Dig it. If you agree with our lists, everybody, make sure you, or if you disagree with the lists, if you disagree, then well, fuck yourself.
Fuck
but
you.
No, in all seriousness, yeah, let us know what you think of our list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know at wrestlemark10@gmail.com. You could tweet us at mark_out of10 or follow us on Instagram and DM us. I don't really use Instagram, so I don't know what the buzzwords are. Just do the Instagram stuff.
It's all
comment on our
hashtags.
YouTube. Hashtag, yeah.
Fucking
Hashtag
reels and
Mu10.
stuff, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hashtag Mu10 everything. Hashtag
Make
Mu10.
sure you like the video on YouTube. Make sure you give it 5 stars on Apple, on Spotify, all that jazz, and share it with a friend. It does help the podcast grow. Next week's list.
I will talk about the algorithm until the cows come home. Any share
all about the algorithm.
is important, so just please do what you can.
Just do what you can. I don't know, did I talk to you about what I think we should do our next top 10?
We haven't discussed this, I don't think.
I've had it on my list as well. I thought I did. I was thinking what we could do, top 10 feuds in wrestling.
Yes.
Do that?
Yeah, because we can talk about wrestling then. Not how it makes me feel. Wrestling. We can talk about actual wrestling. RASSLI, and that's wrestling. We can talk about some crazy shit. That works for me.
So that's it.
What say
top
you guys?
10 wrestling feuds. That's going to be the next one on Mark Out of 10. Thank you to everybody that's listened. Hope you have a fantastic one. As I say, if you see the video here, it means it's worked. If you don't see the video, then something's went Pete Tong. But yeah, thank you from Shields. Goodbye, and Hoxie.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.